Hello, 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 everybody. It's so awesome to have you guys back. So, I am your host, Alistair. I'm co hosted by an awesome squirrel called.
Beefy, your shit talking squirrel friend.
Exactly. So, as you know, this is Boîte Noire Radio. This is a space where we talk about anything and everything. So, please come here with an open mind because you're most likely going to be offended some way, somehow. So, what happens, Beefy, if they can't get their mind open?
They could just, man, you can just go. You can leave. It's cool. Just click off. Hit the like
Exactly.
button, hit the sub button, and GTFO.
And then get out. That's so funny. So one of our guests is Jason Hassett. He is a very talented videographer, even though he doesn't like to admit it. It's okay, Jason. Just take the compliment,
It's not true.
right? But first, before we dive into the subject, I'm really curious to know, and let us know in the comments, how was the holidays? Did you get any gift from Christmas? Do you celebrate Christmas? Are you excited for 2024? Are you looking forward to November? What?
November? Yeah, we got a long way to go before November.
No, but you know what I mean. Wink, 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 wink,
Yeah,
wink, wink.
yeah.
Right, Biffy. How was your holidays?
I was awesome, man. It's always good. I'm very lucky to have a very close family, and it's just, nothing like incredible to report. We had kids over for the first time,
Oh,
I
how
think
old?
ever. Young, like 5 and 10, or no, yeah, 8 and 10. But it
How was
was
it
fun
like?
to see. It was cool to see like
Mm,
that childhood excitement of presents and running around and everything. That was refreshing. Something I
nostalgic.
hadn't. I don't think I've ever experienced that actually as a Christmas with
Mm,
kids since I was a kid, anyways.
mm.
And so that was cool. How about you? What did welcome Jason, by the way.
Hey.
But what did Olympia get for Christmas? Anything cool?
So yes, Olympia loves books, and she's not a big Barbie girl. She's not a big like. She just is obsessed with books. So she got a lot of books. And you know what's interesting? When I was a kid, I mean, books came a very long way. But when I was a kid, there was no sensory books. So
Mm.
she got the pop-up books, of course, but then there's some books that like you just it feels so different on your hands, and like every page is different. It's even good for grown-ups. I was like, wow, that's really awesome. Look, I was just reading a book to her before I came down here. She's obsessed with reading. Good, because I could use a few lawyer here in this household. You know what I mean? How
Jason,
about you, Jason?
yeah, did your kids get anything cool?
No, Cole. They were terrible for Christmas. No, I just got a daughter. She's 2. She'll be 3 in July. So
Mm.
firstborn, spoiled. She got a massive house for outside, and I can't even. There's a list of about 50 things. I gave my wife a card and said, "Go buy the Christmas presents," and that was a mistake. So I'm broke now. But yeah, she got a good bit of stuff that she enjoyed. So
That's really
um,
funny.
yeah, it was really fun. Really fun. You can't beat Christmas with small kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Before we jump in here, let's
Mm.
just see who are regulars and people in the comments chiming off. Fellow YouTuber Credence and Mikey in the house. Always good to see him.
Hello.
He's a Zoom
Hello.
tuber. Make sure you check out his channel, and make sure you check out Jason's too. We're going to be talking more about what he does, but there's a link in the description to his channel. So after you see some of the stuff that we talk about and some of his content, I got a feeling you'll end up wanting to check it out anyways. But so just go. You're going to want to anyways. So just go ahead and hit that button.
Don't do it.
Jonesy's here as Jonesy's here as always. Alicia, Alistair, what's Charlotte saying here?
Yeah, she's saying, hello from France. Hello, Alistair. I hope that you had a good festivities with your beautiful family. I did, even though we were all sick, but there was some good times, of course, in there. And à toi et à eux, je souhaite une belle année. And I wish them all a very happy new year, 2024. Que vous rapporte amour, santé, argent. That year brings you lots of love, health, and money. No, honey, look. You know
Aw.
what's interesting about argent is I think us Europeans when we say Happy New Year, we always wish you money, and I think
Mm.
in America that's always opt out. It's like good
Well,
health,
it's funny you say that because we
never
just
money.
got a $20 super chat from Peggy Jackson. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Peggy. Very sweet of you. so generous. Peggy always comes in here. We love you so much, and it's so generous, and we can't say thank you enough. She also has a comment here. New Year has sucked so far. My brother has been in the hospital for a week with acute. I'm not sure what CHF is. Does anybody know?
Off the top of my head, no, unfortunately.
CHF is, or Peggy, you can let us know. Found out today he has another week. Oh my gosh, that's so awful. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Oh, congenital heart failure. Congenital heart failure.
Oh,
it is.
Okay, gotcha.
I think so. Yeah.
My granddad had that recently. Luckily, he ended up coming through it. But gosh, that's just awful. So sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that, Peggy.
So sorry to hear that. CHS is not. Yeah.
Our condolences. Just a couple more here. Carrie, I don't know if she's been in here before, but she says, "Hi guys, how you're all doing? Happy New Year from Colorado. Beefy, I'm a fellow New Englander. New Englander, born and raised on Cape Cod. I live in Worcester, so it's quite the ride away. But I'm wicked psyched I made the live. Yeah, we're wicked psyched to have you here, guy.
Yes.
Wicked fucking psyched, guy.
Beefy, can I ask, is Worcester spelled like the English way?
Yeah, the exact same way. Yep.
With like where it looks like Worcester, but it's not. It's
yeah. Most people pronounce it Worcester.
My mother's English, so it's always really funny watching other people pronounce those things. Sorry, random side note.
Oh no.
I love me. Have you met me? All I do is randomness. Yeah. Hi, Spooky.
Oh yeah, Spooky's here. Spooky Gnome's here. What's up, Spooky? Carrie said she's been here a bunch of times. I don't know if I. Oh yeah, no, we know Carrie. Yeah.
And
my
Lucy.
Bad, my bad. Lucy.
Yeah, I look forward. I look forward to 2024, and I think 2023 is. It was good, but it was a stressful year. Awesome that we are moving forward as a country, as a species. Look at me picking my words. I'm such an idiot. But Beefy, if I'm ever scared of anything, I just blame you. So there's no big deal.
As you normally do.
As I normally do. So
should be a quiet year for you guys in America. No, it's an election year. That's usually fairly quiet in America.
Yeah.
It's usually January when things kick off, right?
Keep things close to the chest. Yeah.
It's the following January.
Jason, where are you located?
Oh, I'm in Mexico. I'm in a place called Guanajuato.
Right now?
Yeah. It's pretty relaxed down here. Nothing crazy happens in Mexico.
Yeah. That's
they must be really confused by your accent down there.
Well, luckily enough, I can speak Spanish, but they always just think that I'm American, and then they just assume. And then as soon as I speak to them, they're like, "Oh, American." Well, what they say is "gringo" because that's like the kind of in some ways a derogatory term for Americans.
It is.
But they don't mean it in a bad way. It's just kind of normal.
I think it means bastard, right? White bastard.
It just literally where it comes from is when the time of the Alamo and taking Texas and all of that, the U.S. infantry would use green uniforms. So they would say green go in English and it turned into gringo. So that's actually where it comes from.
History.
So but so it's really funny. And then I say, look, I'm actually not American. I'm Irish. And immediately like, what the hell are you doing here? Because it's so far away. I'm like, it's cheaper here than Dublin.
Such a charming accent. You have voice for radio. It really comes through in your.
In Ireland, I don't have an accent. That's what's really funny about it. In Ireland? Yeah, when I'm at home in Ireland, they're like, you have a really neutral accent. Like, you don't have a really strong accent. And then anywhere else, it's like, oh, Irish. Well, how did you know that? But yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, nobody thinks they have an accent. It's like, obviously they have the same one, so they wouldn't think you have an accent in your home country.
Maybe you put it on more when you travel.
Yeah.
Maybe. Think so?
You do.
Maybe.
You do, yeah. When I lived out in Hawaii, I found myself like the Boston accent was coming out more than it usually did. It's almost like a thing in your head subconsciously. You're hearing people talk differently, and so you just like your natural inflection comes out. Because I had never in my life heard that I had a Boston accent. I didn't think that I did. And then when I went out there, they're all like, "Oh yeah, we could tell you're from Massachusetts. Like you're talking that."
People are like, "Why is that squirrel talking like Peter Griffin?"
Yeah.
Hey. I didn't process that until you said that. Do you sound like Peter Griffin? I don't think so, Beefy. Do you?
I don't. Like I said, I that was the only time I ever heard that I had an accent was that when I was in Hawaii. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
No, I don't think you do. You don't have that really like over the top Boston accent.
Yeah, with
You know,
no
welcome to
pronouncing
Boston,
R's or anything. Yeah.
Boston, where the mouth has to go to the side, almost like Boston.
Mm. Alicia.
I'm gonna save everybody's ears from trying to impersonate the Boston accent.
Yeah.
But hey, we got a really big show. We got to talk about
Yeah.
this documentary you did and your channel. So for anybody who doesn't know, Jason has 2 YouTube channels. One of which is called what again? Wheel Sports.
Wheel Sports, yeah, might be given away by the Ferrari hat as well.
No,
which
yeah, there you go.
I didn't think about until I was sitting here.
You know, it's about what, racing cars?
Yeah, so it's about Formula One.
Formula One.
I started it in
fancy.
2021, just doing live streams, and then it kind of continued on from there. So, to be honest with you, I never planned for it to make money or grow an audience. I just, in Mexico, unfortunately, I had no friends I could speak F1 with, so I was like, might as well speak to the camera and just
Wow.
it
And
just
you
kind
know
of
what's
came out.
interesting about F1? It's like it's the bourgeoisie of race car compared to NASCAR, right? So
Yeah.
you're not only doing Formula One, but you're doing the Formula One, darling, right? You're doing
It's the pinnacle of motorsport.
pinnacles
Yes.
of motorsports. Yeah, it's
Literally is what they call it. And by
Yeah.
they, I mean F1 calls themselves the pinnacle of motorsport.
Yeah.
Which, if someone else walked into a bar and said, I'm the pinnacle of this bar, you would punch them in the face. But with
Pinnacle
F1,
of
we just let it
anything, yeah.
go, you know.
I'll be the only idiot who'll be cheering them on. Oh my god, look at that! It's so awesome.
The
I mean,
pinnacle
everyone
just
will be like,
ended.
"Oh, cool, you're number one. Great." Yeah.
But yeah, I just love the technology. It's because it's the one motorsport. I guess there are other ones, but it's there's regulations, but then the teams have to build their own car. Like they can't, you know. So with IndyCar and NASCAR and everything else, they obviously have to kind of just all be kind of the same car, and then it's down to the driver. And I guess people hate that about F1 because it means you know, like Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Now it's like there's the argument always. Well, he only won because he had the best car, and it's like, well,
Well, I don't even know who you're
kind
talking
of.
about. Who's
Well,
Lewis
that's
Hamilton?
surely you know who Lewis Hamilton is.
I have
No?
no idea. Look,
I
I've
thought-
never heard of him
is
either.
Lewis
I'm not a
Hamilton
racing guy.
But like, is he not like the you know, like basically like every sport has the one goat that you kind of know of?
I'm
Like
I'm
Babe
sure
Ruth
he-
or Tom Brady. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't heard of Lewis Hamilton though.
Oh, okay. I just assumed because it was big in America now. But well, there you go, Formula One. You've lost.
That's
You said
it.
you're big in America. It's not
He's
true.
probably really well known. I just I'm not like a
no,
big
that's
racing
it
guy.
now. No, that's it. We've made the decision now.
But to be fair, I do
One
know
doesn't
some
matter.
racers like Phil Gordon, and then what's the girl's name? Everybody talks about
Girls can't
in
race
NASCAR.
cars. Don't be silly.
Oh!
I'm joking.
Oh, Jesus.
Or anyone shouts, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, you know,
Yeah.
people are definitely gonna shout for a
Yeah,
second until they hear that I'm joking, and then it'll take a while for them to cool off and then believe you.
Oh, that's gonna bug me now. Who is the female NASCAR driver Birdie talks about? If you know, let me tell me. In the
Danica
comments.
Patrick was one from
Yes,
before.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's who I'm thinking of. Yep.
She actually commentates on F1 now, and everybody hates her for some reason.
Well, there
I'm
you
not
go.
sure why. I think it's because she actually keeps bringing up things like men drive better than women, and she.
Oh.
Well, that was
and
her
people are
whole
like,
shtick, right? Is that she was controversial and like volatile?
yeah, I guess so. But apparently, it's annoying quite a few people in Europe at the minute. So,
Hmm.
I'm very hard to offend. As Irish people, we
F1.
don't get offended, so I don't
Yeah.
really pay attention to it.
You know what that means? That means you probably offend a lot more people.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So
And
usually people that get offended tend to offend more. Yeah. More.
Yeah.
often.
It's not on purpose. It's just I think it's just like
know,
if you don't get offended, you're just like, why would you
Yeah.
be offended by that?
Right. Yeah, it's not on purpose, but usually that's how it is. It's okay. It's okay. Just a few lawsuits will set you straight.
I have to get insurance. Yeah, definitely.
It was a joke, everybody. Okay. No, well, it depends, but it was a joke. Yeah, of course.
Anyways, all right. So
Yeah,
let's,
go for it.
let's jump into our topic today here.
Mhm.
So yes, he has the channel over there, Wheel Sports, which you can check out. But primarily, you started this new venture into making documentaries. One of which went basically viral. I mean, you made this documentary about UFOs that's got some 800,000 views. Congrats! Yeah, do your aw shucks. Geez.
In fairness, the reason I'm shocked by it is one because the production value, even compared to the next one, which we're going to talk about primarily here, the Zodiac one,
Yeah.
which again I think still could be massively improved, but that was my first big one. The quality wasn't that great. I didn't think. I think the reason it went viral is one because people are crazy to find aliens, obviously.
Yeah.
And two, I think because I purposely didn't, because it annoys me. I didn't want to do the History Channel thing of covering, I saw 17 craft over my garden. And it's like, yeah, do you have any evidence? Like so I did one instead where I just said, let's just see what the US military and government documents say, because they're going to be the ones who are like, no, that doesn't exist. And it turns out the US military are like, yeah, we have had 11 near misses with these things. And it was like, oh,
with
so the
UFOs,
military,
yeah. Well, that's
yeah,
the
and then
distinction that the military makes, is that they see these objects, but they don't know what they are. They're not
UAPs
gonna,
and
yeah.
But I kept it very straight to the facts, and I think that was where it kind of went viral, because people were sharing it with friends, going, "Look, it's not just crazy people talking about this; it is a proper discussion now."
Yeah.
I don't know if they're aliens. I think personally they're US tech, like secret tech. But that brings up more questions, because it's so advanced. Like, did they develop it themselves, or did they actually find alien? If you want to find out, watch the documentary. But
yeah, well, be sure to check it out. I have to say, it did kind of feel like there was a massive jumping. Not to say that the first one was bad, like you said, but
that was terrible. If you can say it's fine.
In this documentary, the one we're talking about today, Deciphering the Zodiac, it was just I told you before the show, but it really did feel like we were watching a Netflix quality documentary for free on YouTube. It almost blows my mind that there are these documentarians that are putting this stuff out there. I don't know if you've heard of any of these other creators, but like Dave's Lemonade, he makes like Netflix quality documentaries that just are for free. It's crazy that the technology has evolved to this point where it's so accessible that we're able to do that.
I would say even guys like Yes Theory, for example, with travel content, they're up there. I think Netflix, James Janney with cryptocurrency stuff.
Even like Shane Dawson was doing like arguably streaming quality documentaries.
I think this is where YouTube is going, if I'm honest, because even if you watch like Mr. Beast, who was basically for younger kids up until recently, has started kind of going down this more slow, storytelling kind of idea. And I think this is where we're headed. I think the competition has gotten so heavy on YouTube now that you're going to see more people go, well, I'm just going to up the quality because that's the only option now. Otherwise, I'm just going to get lost.
It not necessarily just YouTube, but streaming in general, like internet content, is going to become the main form of what everybody watches. Like, it's almost gotten there. There's so many, cable cutters out there, the people that don't really watch cable anymore. And it's weird because I've been saying this for a long time that like YouTube is only going to get bigger. So like if you have an inclination that you want to start a YouTube channel, the best time to do that is now. Whether it's 10 years ago or it's 10 years from now, the best time to do it is now, because it's only just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
I think what's going to make it huge for creators as well is the fact that now they're starting to open up to everyone the multi-language option. So I have subtitles on mine for Spanish, and obviously they can be auto-translated. But
they need to work on that, though. Some of the auto-translated don't do too great. Yeah,
I do mine manually in English and Spanish, and then the rest I kind of leave to it. But I have to do it in Spanish because the wife annoys me because she's Mexican, so she
she understands it easy.
Yeah, and it's easy then because she can watch it and tell me, no, that's wrong.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and
I speak Spanish, but I'm not. It's not my first language, so I will get stuff wrong. So it's like she can check it. So yeah. And
also with like a play on words, right? So she can also guide you with that, which is a lot of the time with second language speakers, that goes over their head.
Yeah.
With translation, AI now is being introduced to translate without. It's doing a pretty good job. It's on testing, but I've seen some of the
well, YouTube needs to jump in there and invest in some of this equipment, but it goes to show this quality that you're putting into these documentaries. It makes sense that even the subtitles you're going through and by hand, it shows. Like, you watch this documentary and you're picking up on all these small little things and taking I had seen a lot of, like, we've covered the Zodiac case on this channel before, and I've done extensive research. I mean, I've read Robert Graysmith's books. I've watched, I thought, up until seeing your documentary, everything there was to see about Zodiac. But you found stuff that, I mean, when you and I kind of initially talked, it was regarding Zodiac, but we had talked initially about coming to have you on up to talk about another case.
Yeah.
And so when we finally got around to, because we were both just busy with holidays and whatever, I'd kind of forgotten how good this thing was. So in preparation for this, I found myself watching it again. And I just could not stop myself from taking all kinds of notes because all these different thoughts came up in my head about these different takes and stuff that I had never really considered before. So, I'll probably do this several times as we go through today, but I can't applaud you enough on how great this thing was and how much I enjoyed it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm not going to take compliments well, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep doing it. So you're in for a rough ride here.
You're amazing. You're amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving
on. Let's get into this a little bit. People who are here in the comments and will be watching this in the replay, we are going to talk a little bit today on the assumption that you're familiar with some of these, but I'll try to do my best to kind of give a 1 or 2 line sentence, just kind of describe what happens. But moving to the start of it all, discussing Faraday and Jensen, I had heard a little bit about like the drug dealer theories. So for anybody who might need a refresher,
I remember those.
David Faraday and Jensen had gone on a date and they just got into a car. They parked at a lover's lane to kind of make out. And then somebody came up, pulled behind them and shot them to death. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the speculation initially surrounding the location, as that was known as a somewhat of a hotspot for drug dealers. But your documentary, it dives really deep into Faraday's background with drugs. According to what you put forward through your research or whatever, Faraday wasn't just an Eagle Scout, but he was captain of the wrestling team and just like a good old 50s good old boy, so to speak. But he was really against drugs.
Yeah. What was interesting about that was I hadn't really thought about that until I watched it was a newer Peacock documentary. It was Myth of the Zodiac. And I think some of that documentary went a bit off the rails kind of to prove that the whole thing was a myth and he didn't exist. And I think sometimes if your objective is to prove he doesn't exist, then you can go down rabbit holes that maybe and I think it does fall into that. But it was really well done, to be fair. But one of the things he brought up was that idea that, this guy had stood up to someone who was selling drugs in the local area. And I wasn't sure about that, so I went off, and there was documents in the actual original investigation that someone had brought this up, that there was a drug deal that he had confronted someone about, and apparently I think it was a biker gang, if I recall correctly, in the local area. And obviously drugs in those days were just marijuana. And then as I went on about this, it was like, okay, now there's the link to literally that same night, there was one of the biggest drug busts they had, in that area. I think
you say that. It wasn't like 1.5 pounds of weed or something like that.
Which, as the detective said, was huge at the time, but would be
It's like, oh my God, 1 pound.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a pound of marijuana, which today they'd be like, that'd be like, leave that in your dorm room.
Half a step away from legal, yeah.
So, but yeah, it was an interesting one that I hadn't thought about before, because I'd seen the Zodiac film, David Fincher film, which I love, in 2007. And
they don't even portray this murder in that film.
Not really. They do, don't they? But just really quickly.
No, they show Majo and
you're
and
right,
Farron.
actually, yeah.
And he makes a comment about, I also killed those kids last Christmas. They don't
and that
actually
was it.
depict.
Yeah, you're right. But there was just, that movie was fantastic, but a lot of these small details were left out just to kind of, again, guide that path to one person.
His documentary is actually really good. You cite it several times in your documentary. This is the Zodiac speaking, and then the
really good documentary. That
My
really
name
good.
is Arthur. Yeah, that's actually my favorite though. This is the Zodiac speaking, because you get like everybody, all of the players, like the responding officers, Brian Hartnell, everybody who was even Michael Majo. Like, it was really the only time I had seen.
I think that's one criticism I have of my documentary, that when people commented it, I was like, that kind of was like, and it was the only comment that got to me at all, because I think sometimes when a YouTube comment gets to you, it's because that's true. And it was one comment, it was like, you're just using other interviews from things. And I'm like, it bugged me, because I'm like, I wanted to go off and get original interviews, but most of the people from this case are either no longer with us or unable to kind of talk about it, in any, so it just didn't make sense. But I don't know
if I would agree with that, but granted, some of the stuff that you showed, I wasn't familiar with, so I guess I can't comment to some of their sources, but it was mostly you talking about stuff and like news reports, like the stuff that everybody
most of it, yeah. I think like 60% of it or 70% of it was news reports. But there was just some interviews that I was like, I physically, because they were interviews in 2007 of people who were in their 70s and 80s, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to put them on camera.
For the Fincher film, and the only reason they were even able to get it is because you had the name like Fincher putting that documentary together for the movie.
Yeah. If I said, I've one UFO documentary, can I interview you, please, about this very serious topic? One, finding out if they're alive would be a problem. Second, for them to be like, who the hell are you and what's YouTube? But so it is what it is.
And keeping this discussion about some of the footage you're able to track down for this, I don't know if this was coming from somebody else's documentary, but you were able to track down a lot of footage from Darlene's ex-husband, Dean. So for anybody who doesn't know, Mike Peugeot here is on the right. He actually lives the attack, but it's very similar to the previous ones of Faraday and Jensen in that, they're on a date, they go to a lover's lane type spot, and then this the Zodiac comes up behind them and then shoots them to death. Yeah. However, Michael Peugeot, he lives in this case.
Yeah.
But we even get a couple of excerpts from an interview he did, and in this interview, we were told that Darlene's other ex-husband, so not the guy she's on the date with and not the guy she's married to, the husband before that. We get a lot of information about this guy, the one before Dean, who is her current husband. When she's on the date with Mike, he was abusive and he would like smack her around. He wouldn't even let her sleep in the bed. In fact, one of the guys during this segment, it's not Darlene's ex, it's another gentleman. I didn't catch his name, but he flat out says Darlene's first husband was stalking her, and he is the prime suspect in the Farron case.
Yeah.
How much legitimacy do you put into this theory? I mean, I think we almost as a reflex just assume Zodiac committed all these murders. But, as you said with this other Myth of the Zodiac, I have seen parts of that.
Yeah.
He's been known to take credit for cases he really didn't have any involvement in. So is there a world where her husband actually did this and Zodiac either took credit for it or just happened to be at the right place or the right time?
So, there's a few things. One is that obviously in the original, again, going back to the investigation before Zodiac's name was even in this, because remember, Zodiac wasn't even thought about until after this specific incident. They initially would have straight away gone to the husband. And even the detective said, if it's a case like this, you always think about the ex-husband or the husband or whatever.
We've said it on this show before that it's the number one theory is it's always the husband.
The other thing was, and this was brought out in Myth of the Zodiac. So I don't think I put it in the documentary if I remember, but I'd need to go back again. But the reason I don't think I did is because I couldn't substantiate it with anything from the police. But apparently the door handle on Peugeot's side was removed, and then when it was in the impound lot afterwards, it was back on. So Peugeot said someone had taken the handle off. It was in Robert.
Really?
It was in Roberts Graysmith's book as well. He said,
"Oh, okay." So hold on, because I really call into question some of the claims that Graysmith makes in that book. I mean, some of the I mean, some of the stuff that he puts forth has just been flat out proven wrong, basically. I mean, not to say the whole thing's lies. He did a lot of research, but as they portray in the movie, he kind of went a little crazy putting that book together.
Wow.
I think this is, again, the problem with, like I said, Myth of the Zodiac Killer, great documentary, but I think that's the problem. When you start something with an idea in mind and you're just trying to kind of go, okay, this is what we think, let's walk backwards. I think it's so easy to kind of fill in the gaps. You know what I mean? So,
or get things wrong. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Because basically he had decided early on, this is Arthur Lee Allen. So all he's trying to do is fill in the gaps to this is this guy. Which
they specifically tell you in police procedure not to do that, not to go into an investigation with one suspect in mind, but try to look at all the evidence non-objectively and let the evidence dictate where the investigation goes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of not only the investigation, but I think Graysmith and some of the other documentaries as well are it's too easy to fall into that. Well, I was going to start this documentary as something just about Arthur Lee Allen, and I decided, screw that, I'll just tell the whole story. And I think that was better because I kind of decided, right, let's forget that he was even a suspect and go back. And that's where I found a lot of these little kind of details from different documentaries and stuff that was like, oh, I hadn't seen that before. That's interesting.
Well,
But
that's the problem too, right? If you're going to do a documentary about Arthur Lee Allen, like kind of like you said earlier, like that story's already been told. Like Grayson,
exactly.
he made that documentary, and I think you'd be hard pressed to put together a better narrative than he did for that one, or add anything to the conversation. And the guy's dead.
And to Graysmith's defense as well, that book was very good. As just a story, it was very good,
especially for the time. I think a big part of this, just in reference to what you're talking about, is that there's been so much time since the attacks, and it was in such a notoriety that it's been able to splinter off into these diverging paths, so it's almost like in those choose your own adventure video games. It's like one little 2-path thing splinters off into 2 more and then 2 more, and so by the time you get to 2024, it's just this massive web of all this kinds of information. You don't know what's real, what's a red herring, what's connected, what's not. And so you kind of left with this, like these documentarians that put forth a very one-sided theory. But, again, I applaud you in being objective and kind of taking the pieces that felt relevant, and you didn't do that, is what I'm trying to say.
I think the quickest thing to put it in perspective is that when you watch all of these back now and look at Graysmith stuff, you can kind of forgive them for, if you take like even our technology over the past 20 years in terms of forensics and the way they investigate things, and like even serial killer investigations and understanding serial killers. I think that you can kind of forgive them for, at the time, a lot of that understanding wasn't there. So it's very easy to kind of just go, well, that's an assumption. We'll just go with that. And, 60 years later, obviously, we're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about?
That's another one of the most common things people say about this case is if Zodiac had tried to do it today, there's no chance he would have gotten away with it. Like 90% of the reason, 90% of the reason he got away with it was just luck.
Yeah.
Well, also, luck of the times, right? I mean, today they can locate you from just a lock of your hair, and then exactly your age, your location, and where you're from.
I think from the bullets, they probably would have caught him a lot quicker these days.
From the bullets. Yeah, look at that.
Because he left so many shells behind.
That's right.
I think these days they would have caught him a lot quicker, even with that.
I'm alive. And also, there's cameras everywhere now. They'd be like, "Oh, there he is. Oh, there
that's
he is.
true. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. There he is." So
even in a lover's lane, there's probably a
Yeah.
Chinese drone in a lover's lane these days.
Yeah.
So you're screwed. Like,
why did you pick Chinese?
Oh, they would have just pulled up their cell phones too and just started recording it.
I'll tell you why I picked Chinese, and that wasn't meant in any way bad. It's just because I was doing some research today on Chinese tech for something else I want to do later on, and I only realized today that DJI, the drone maker that everybody uses, DJI, are a Chinese company, and I didn't know that. I was like, that's crazy. So
it's so funny. No, I was being a little naughty. I was like,
why is he getting out about China? We got a Trump supporter here.
You said the word.
Spooky one. Look, that would be on TikTok so quick. Really, the Chinese app. Yeah. Oh, shucks. We gotta. Sorry, taking a little break here. I haven't been paying attention to the comments. Brendan's from Alaska. He's in here. Oh, Credence Mikey says good. Thanks, man. He's a big time YouTuber too. Look at us. We're moving up. We're bumping elbows with the elites now.
I think I'm subscribed to Credence and Mikey because that sounds so familiar. I think so. And if I'm not,
he does LawTube. Oh, Bubba's in the house. Plus, he'd get discovered by cell phone location. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, people with their cell phones alone.
Yeah.
His prints and DNA, I believe, are on record. They've got prints from. Actually, I think that's part of what I wanted to talk about today. But they got his prints from the clothesline, from the phone. A partial print was on the cab, right, in blood, and then they got a DNA sample from one of his letters.
Yeah, they have DNA from the letters, from the stamps. They have palm prints. They have tons of stuff to match it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
a lot of people say that the DNA actually isn't his. Like when that Arthur Lee Allen DNA, they're like, oh, he had. I love how all these people come out of the woodwork and they're just explaining everything away. Like, oh yeah, Arthur Lee Allen took me out into the woods and he just told me he was going to be Zodiac before it ever happened.
Well, there was one guy. His name is eluding me, but there is one friend of Arthur Lee Allen who said that Arthur got him to lick all of the stamps.
Oh yeah, what's his name? Shaney. Robert Cheney or something like that.
I think that's
Cheney.
right. But I think
Yeah.
they checked his DNA and it didn't match either, so that throws that right out. You
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah. He flat out goes, "Oh yeah, so I was sitting in his house one time and he asked me, hey, can you lick a few of these stamps?" It's like, okay,
yeah,
man, like
it's just
a
like,
little
oh,
too convenient.
I'm just gonna go kill these people. I'm the Zodiac. By the way, lick these stamps for me.
Yeah.
Of course you're gonna be like, no. Like, I know they didn't think about DNA back then, but any sane, normal person would just be like, no, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah. But it was
Any
the
sane
60s.
person.
Different people. The 60s. Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
there was
another
no internet.
another piece I was able to pick up from your doc, you know, it's again, it's like it's just so in depth in this case, just splinters off into so many things. You know, there are still things I had never heard in this film though, because it's so large, and you know, I really applaud your filmmaking skills, putting this on for free. It's incredible. But I'm watching your doc, and I noted that Blue Rock Springs and Lake Herman Road, where these first two attacks occurred between Farron and Faraday.
Yeah,
it's really close. Like you would say,
6 minute drive, I think.
Yeah, I hadn't really put together how close that was. Like,
yeah,
if you think about it, because of his first two attacks, he had to have had connections to that area, right?
Yeah, you would assume so. I mean, I didn't realize either how close it was. Like, I think when I read the book from Graysmith and watched the movie before I had kind of dove in for this, I knew they were close, like in the same kind of county.
But yeah, 6 or 7 minutes.
6 minutes, yeah.
I
mean,
that's
he could have shot one, cycled to the other, shot the other, and cycled away on a bicycle before the police got there. Like, that's how close it was.
If you think about it, he's not like driving down from San Francisco randomly to the Benicia Vallejo area twice. Plus, they say that like a serial killer's first 3 attacks are typically like in a triangle, like in a mile radius of their house or something like that.
Yeah, they do say that because they're lazy at first. They go, "Whoa, that was really scary."
I think there's also that.
Go
I was just going to say, I think it's also that, and also you kind of, it's comfort in your surroundings. You think you know your surroundings better than anyone else.
Yeah.
So that's probably part of it. Yeah. That would make sense.
What I was about to say, yeah, they want to make
that's
sure
where
they
I
can
kill
like
people anyway.
Have a quick getaway, right? Because like they don't want to be stuck in some neighborhood they don't know or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe there was like a third attack that we didn't hear of before, like in between Mageau and Farron, and then who we're gonna get to here, Cecilia and Hartnell. You know, maybe there was a third one, like at the apex of that triangle, that would have kind of given us that little pyramid to say he's probably, if does not lives here, maybe he works here, has a family member that lives in this. Either way, the fact that they're his first 2 crimes, they're that close together, like I think just a couple, or no, like 6 months or something like that, and that they're 6 minutes away, he definitely has roots tying to the Benicia Vallejo area, for sure.
Yeah. I think he definitely knows the area very well, at the very least.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But completely random, do you think the number of the serial killer in our times today is drastically reduced?
This was actually.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, so this was actually something that this was turned into a conversation in the comments on this documentary actually as well, and gave me some food for thought. And one of the main takeaways that everyone kept bringing up that I think there's some truth to is just that I don't think many people get to be serial killers anymore. I think they get caught first time because it's so much harder.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, it's so much harder. And the second part is that
they aren't able to hit that threshold of 3 killings to become serial.
Serial.
You're just a jewel killer. It's not the same,
right?
Jewel,
and I think that
don't reach like the 10 level marriage or whatever. You know, like 10 platinum diamond or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just so much harder.
Yeah, and I think the next reason is because it's there's so much more technology, so inherently we all know it will be difficult to get away with. So there's a higher level of deterrence. You know? Like,
yeah, it's like even like just there's so much that the detectives now and that forensics can use to track back to you. So like even if you take your battery out of your phone, it's still pinging a cell tower. So there's the first thing that will get most people caught, because they'll assume I'll take the battery out. Although in saying that, you can't take the battery out of these things anymore, so never mind.
That's right, you can't anymore.
No. So you have to leave your phone behind, and then people can't use maps anymore. So they'll kill
right.
someone and
That's
then be
right.
like, "Where am I? I haven't got a
Yeah.
GPS. I'm
How do I
screwed."
get away?
Yeah.
How do I run?
And then
Beep.
if you use
Yeah.
a car that has a computer, a modern computer in it, it probably has
screwed.
GPS, which
Yeah.
means it probably connects and sends some sort of signal. So you're using an old 50s car that's going to break down as well. So you're screwed there. You use any modern bullet, you're screwed there. Basically, you need to be someone who is homeless with a knife.
Yeah, happens to be in the right place, right time.
Right place, right time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then not tell anybody. That's the important thing.
You have to know the bus routes. Basically.
Yeah, you have to be an OG.
Yeah.
I mean, look at even Kohlberger, right? Like he was going to school for criminology. Like he was literally learning at a professional level criminology and how to catch these people, and he still got caught really quickly. Like he left DNA on the site.
Yeah, I think it's my advice if you want to be a serial killer, and I know that's what this podcast is really about, is move
that's the advice.
Move to a country with corrupt police, and that's the simplest solution, I think.
Yeah, like Mexico.
Yeah,
I was about to say,
that's
like
why
Mexico.
I'm here. But no.
Not what this podcast is about. What this interview is about. Where are they buried, Jason?
I would not.
Where are the bodies buried?
I would not advise being a serial killer in Mexico, because I think most people could probably kill me before I'd kill them.
Oh yeah,
it's a tougher upbringing here.
Cartel come and fucking hunt you down.
Yeah,
that's scary.
My brother-in-law, like, you know, he was like 19 and proficient in weapons, and he doesn't have a weapon. I'm like, how do you learn that? And he's like, shut up. So yeah, just be careful down here. You know. So
you're a better man than me.
Well, my business partner down here is an MMA owner, and like, so I've got a lot of MMA friends down here. So I'll just call someone to beat people up. It's fine. You know, I just need to run away. That's all.
Good to have friends in high places. All right, so moving on to the Cecilia Hartnell attack. Again, just a quick summation. Brian takes this girl Cecilia. They're college mates, but they're also had dated at one point, and they decide they're going to go. I think actually initially they were saying they're going to go into San Francisco, but it kind of got late in the day. They stopped at a town and kind of like perused records at a record store, and so before they knew it, it's like afternoon, and so rather than go to San Francisco because it's a far drive away, they end up going to Lake Berryessa at one of these spots that Brian had been to before. They're kind of laying on the beach, and a gentleman comes up to them with a hood over his face and points a gun at them, tells them he wants his car, and when they give him their car keys and everything, he ties them up, he stabs them to death. He writes on the car door, you know, by knife, 621 or whatever, and then, Hartnell ends up surviving the attacks. Again, we're seeing this pattern of more brutality going upon the girl versus the guy. So it's two men now that have lived, and Cecilia would not survive, unfortunately. Even though she would get a chance to talk to police, and that's part of what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
But before we get there, these attacks, they happened really late in the tourism cycle on September 27th. And I had heard that date, but it wasn't until kind of watching your doc, I really was able to put myself in the atmosphere. It's pretty late in the season. Like it's borderline October. Yeah. Now, you know, some of you might say, hey, well, it's California. It's summer year round. I mean, not necessarily. I remember living in Hawaii where it was literally summer year round, you know, aside from a couple rainy months in December or whatever. It hovers like between 75 to 85 all year round. Anyways, I remember in those later months, especially the fall, right? Like September, October, November, going into December, you're just beached out. Like, even if you could probably tell from experience living in Mexico, all summer long, you're going to barbecues and events, you know? So Napa Valley, post Labor Day, it must have been a barren wasteland. You know, what role do you think the time year may have played in his selection of the attacks? And sticking with that theory that our suspect has connections to Vallejo, that's like an hour plus north. You know, I think if he tries to pull that attack off anytime other than just after Labor Day, he's going to get spotted committing them. You know what I mean? Do you think it was an intentional thing?
So I've thought about this a good bit, and if we do go along the lines of this is just one killer and all of those things, I think the fact that it's an hour away would kind of line up with the idea that it's more brutal, right? Because this is him elevating his crime. This isn't just I'm going to shoot someone and run away. This is like
determined.
Yeah, brutally. And I think the time of year would fold into that because it was done around an exact time where, for example, the park rangers went off on walks and they were pretty much alone. So it was almost like it's kind of I'm sitting around figuring out what's going on and then just waiting for two people to be by themselves at the exact time, kind of a very planned but also crime of opportunity. It's like I know what's happening around to a T. I know everything that's happening around, but I'm going to wait for someone to be there at that time. And like you said, it's an hour away isn't that far. I mean, if you're going to kill someone, I think an hour drive isn't that big of a deal,
It's not that far to plan on staying there, right? So
yeah, and you could book motels and everything,
right.
So here's my theory in this whole thing, right? Like you said, you alluded to what I'm trying to get at here, right? You have this massive jump in brutality. Like the first attacks are kind of just he shoots and he drives away. I think that him selecting this barren wasteland at the specific time of year he did is very selective because he knows he's going to do this massive jump in brutality. He has the first two attacks where he's kind of just bang bang and then he's gone. And there's that old
time.
that old pesky rule of the diminishing returns effect, right?
Right.
Like he's done the first one and the first one's exhilarating. He's got this huge rush of, oh my God, I did it, and so he pulls off the second one and it's really not the same. Like he's not getting that rush quite like he did the first time. So he's now taking it to this place where, there's this theory that Zodiac was a military man, you know what I mean? We're even seeing like a change in how he's executing the attacks. Like, let's stick with this theory that he's military, right? The first two killings, they're very in line with that mentality, right? Like he's even in the first attacks, he's like doing like the sidearm tactics where he's pulling out and drawing and shooting really quick. He's using the flashlight at the tip of his gun. He's even like going in depth as to what kind of ammo he's using, right? Like these are all tactical things. Wearing the black, no face mask. Then we get to Berryessa. He's donning this hood, right? Almost like we mentioned on the podcast, like a supervillain, right? So he's putting on this mask, he's tying them up, and he's stabbing them to death, like to the point where Brian even says that he was exhausted. Like it was a physical task for him to actually plunge the knife into them that many times. So he's living in the moment, and he's not only feeling the experience, but it's taking the wind out of him. He has now escalated from where he is a tactician, right? Like he's going with his military theme, and he's now become a criminal. Like those two modus operandis are so different. I feel like sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think you're right. And like even he was trying to apparently draw the Zodiac symbol into Cecilia with the knife, like cut it in. Now,
where did you hear that?
That's according to Gray Smith and some other document that I came across. I'd need to look up again. So these are iffy, but apparently he was trying to like, kind of cut that into her, but she kept moving, so he couldn't. But regardless, even if that's not true, he stabbed her in the back, the front, the side, because she was moving around so much. So really brutal.
I mean,
that is what I heard. Yeah.
If just to throw a spanner in the works for a second, I'm sorry to throw this out there, but
no.
If it wasn't for the fact that Brian was like stabbed repeatedly in the back, I think after the interviews, I would have thought he did it until he was stabbed. Because some of his conversation afterwards in the interviews, he's like, I was with the girl, like, just kept saying the girl.
Yeah.
And just the way he
himself.
And explaining it real emotionless and so on. It was like, there was bits of it where I was like kind of having to go while I was making it. I was like, if he wasn't stabbed, I probably would be going, you did it, But I think it would be.
He was a freaking hero in all this. I don't know if you've heard what he did after they were attacked, but he's able to kind of coax Cecilia to undo his binds with her teeth, and he's able to.
Yeah.
To the point where he couldn't stand up, right? So he's bleeding from the back, and he goes to make it to this road. It's a long walk.
He kept passing out on the way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he would try to stand up to walk, but like something about him trying to hold his head up, maybe because of the blood loss, he would lose consciousness. So he had to kind of like in this weird crouched, like keeping his head slinked down, try to take a few steps, and then just fall down the ground.
I think
rest.
if he was because he was a big guy, like a big guy. I think if he wasn't, he would have been screwed because he was stabbed 10 times in the back, I think.
Yeah.
I think Cecilia was stabbed 10. He was stabbed like 6. Again, Cecilia was the target there. It's almost like Brian is incidental to him wanting to hurt the girl.
Yeah. Well, I think if Brian wasn't so big, I think he wouldn't have been able to make it that, because I think the reason, like you said, he was passing out is because of the blood loss. I think a smaller guy, a bit less blood, that many stab wounds, you're screwed. He was really lucky to survive. The pain.
I think the pain of being stabbed 6 times with the knife fully entering your body at X amount of force, the pain alone can make you pass out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And also to go back to the brutality of the crime. You know, sometimes when I look back, I'm like, I think the reason why the brutality also may have escalated is because he was enjoying the fame and he wanted more fame.
Yeah.
So staying in a hometown and killing the neighbor or the person down the street just wasn't fun anymore. He wanted he was feeding off the ego of people like, oh my God, have you heard? I know. And he just reveled in the like, yeah, that's me. And so I think that's why most serial killers escalate their killing, is they enjoy it, but they enjoy mainly because they feel powerful. They look at you and they know
it's like the police can't catch me. Look what I can do, and you can't get me. Yeah,
it's like they have this they're drunk on the power of life and death. And to be very quite honest, I can see how that can be intoxicating if you can do this and then you disappear and nothing happens to me. And like,
well, they say that's like what most serial killers like most about it. It's being having someone's life in your hand and the power therein. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think about the fact that it was brought up by one of the detectives on the case that, if you're going to kill someone, you don't wear a mask? I thought that was an interesting comment from the detective, and I disagreed with it. I was like, I think you're in an open public area. I'm wearing a mask,
I'm wearing a mask. I'm wearing gloves.
Yeah. Do you think it's that simple, or do you think there's something else to it?
No. So when I first heard that kind of, I had never really thought about it that way. Like, to be honest, that line in particular of this is a Zodiac speaking, the first time I heard that, it really took me out, and it was like, oh shit. Yeah. Why would you wear a mask if you're going to kill someone? But again, I think it goes back to this location that he selected. They're on this kind of remote, it's not even just a beach. It's like a little plateau that kind of sticks out. It's not like just the road's right there. There's this long walk he has to do. And that's actually where they got his boot prints, was the long walk back to the cars. And again, we had Brian, he was trying to get to the road and it was like a quarter mile.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody just happens to be coming to the beach at the same time he's walking away and he's not wearing the mask.
Yeah.
They're going to walk past him and then eventually come up on these two teens that he's probably covered in blood. Let's forget that. But if he's not wearing the mask, they're going to see his face. Let's not forget, Cecilia saw this guy before he went behind a tree and was able to give a description to, I believe his name is Land, who we will get to. I know you kind of read the riot act of this guy in your documentary. We're going to talk about that. But people forget that she saw him. Like, she was able to get.
She gave one of the better descriptions, right?
Yeah, yeah. What he looked, he was only like, because even Brian, he goes through and he talks about how he's on his back, and Cecilia starts saying, "Oh, there's somebody over there," and he thinks that they're much further away, but he's actually like fairly close to them, like within, I think, like 10, 20 feet, because they show it in the documentary. They go back to where they're laying and kind of where he saw them, and it's close. It's close enough that if I saw somebody just standing there in all black watching me, I'd be like, the fuck does he want? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he just wore a mask because he wanted to get in the moment and be detached from the person that he was going to kill.
Yeah, I think also the fact that it was an executioner's mask is probably the key reason as well.
Yeah,
I mean, you're dressing up as
You
an
are dying
executioner.
today,
Yeah,
allegedly.
Mhm. And he
And
was a
we talked-
military guy, right? So prepare for anything.
Yeah.
Right.
We talked about it on the podcast too, of this like this fantasy of wanting to portray the supervillain. Like this is almost throughout the whole time he's using this Zodiac and he's setting in these ciphers, you know what I mean? He's made up a comic book style Nick supervillain name,
No,
and he's
Yeah.
literally donning the costume when he
no.
goes behind that
What an
tree.
idiot.
It's kind of pathetic.
Like, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes.
The D, except that's
Just
the knife in his
the
hand.
tree.
You know, coming
Right,
down.
right.
And, yeah. The D
It's like,
to her
it's
chest.
not me. I'm Superman, right? You're like one idiot.
He just takes it off and he's like, I'm a
Yeah.
park ranger.
Be right
Oh.
back. Let me go behind the tree and check. No, it's so silly.
All right. So before we move on to what is arguably the most important
Mhm.
pieces of this case, or at least what launched it into the mainstream, the ciphers and this murder of Paul Stein, we're going to get to.
Yeah.
So you name a suspect in your documentary that I had never really heard before, and it's who I was alluding to earlier, this Dennis Land guy. And it's interesting. I had seen his name in relation to this case, obviously because he was the park ranger that first discovered Brian and Cecilia shortly after the attacks. And your documentary puts forth the theory that him being first on scene is really no coincidence. In fact, Brian Hartnell himself, one of the only surviving victors, he tells police that, initially when Land first approaches him on ATV, that Brian thought it was the killer coming to finish the job. Now, it's a little misleading, and you actually allude to this in your documentary. What he was saying was because he saw headlights, he thought it was the killer to finish the job, and when he steps off the ATV and sees the badge, a sense of relief comes over him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Couple that with the fact that Dennis's radio signaled off shortly before the attacks and then signed on shortly afterwards. He took what was the crime scene, the blanket, the car keys, and everything, and just kind of bundled it up together and effectively got rid of the crime scene. I mean, these are all facts that
Ken Narlow, the lead. I was just gonna say Ken Narlow, the lead detective. His literal quote was, "That annoyed me because there wasn't a crime scene to check anymore." And he says he was trying to do a nice thing, but I think a park ranger would have known not to touch evidence, which was a bit strange.
But back then, was it?
I think so, right? I think even back then you'd know to leave it for the detective. Maybe, I mean, what Ken Narlow thinks is that he was packing it up to preserve the evidence. And maybe that was the case. Maybe there's nothing more to it than that. But I think, a park ranger probably would have known that the detectives want to see everything.
Yeah, they have to be getting a certain amount of police training. And wasn't he a military man as well?
Yeah, I think so. And I just think that the fact that the detectives at the time would have wanted the crime scene left as is, I think a park ranger would have known that. But who knows? Maybe he didn't.
My only thing with that is because even today, right, in real life, if we were to walk into an environment and we see blood on the floor, a person hanging in the ceiling, I mean, okay, most of us would scream and maybe turn around, but I'd be like, "Hello, ma'am, are you all right? Is everything okay?" Like, we'll be touching a few things, right? So I think
personally, if they're screaming, "Help me!" I'll be like, "Listen, I'm not touching this. There's a lot of forensics here.
Look, let me tell you.
Well, we need to hold on before you do that. We need to factor into it that this is outside, right? Like, he might have been thinking the wind could blow everything away. Like any evidence that might there, it could have rained. He might have actually thought that like there's forensics on this, like hair and stuff like that. So I have to. I mean, again, I'm just trying to play devil's avocados, so to speak.
Devil's avocados.
Yeah.
I think there's I think it's probably something simple like that, just a mistake. I don't think there's anything more to it than that, but I thought it was a really interesting point that I couldn't leave out because it is interesting to say, right, there's this guy who turns his radio off just before, like this park ranger.
That was crazy to me.
Yeah, he goes dark like a few minutes before. He comes back just a few minutes after. He stumbles upon the body and he ruins the crime scene. And
maybe he was just doing something naughty.
Maybe
it just so happens like, oh crap, there's a dead body here.
Yeah. My Irish brain has gone to some very dirty things that I won't say
Right.
online.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying devil's avocado, like
But
you
yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna go smoke some little something. Just make sure he sees what I'm doing, and then he comes back out like, oh crap, there's someone
I have to
here.
say though, like as much as there are flaws in your theory, it was like one of the highlights of the documentary for me. Again, I had never heard that theory before, that he was actually, and then seeing the where they call like 10-8 sign off, and then like right after the call gets come in,
I
he's
have
signing
to
back
give
in.
a lot of credit to the myth of the Zodiac guys for that, because I hadn't really heard about it until watching that documentary, and then I was like, oh, is there actually anything to this? And that's when I went back and started looking through stuff, and I was like, oh, there is actually some merit to this argument. But it fell apart very quickly for me. I don't know if you want to, after the phone call, it fell apart very quickly for me.
Yeah, because so again, you do such a good job of covering all the bases in this thing. You even get into some of the theories of how it's not Dennis Land, and as you're referring to, he would have had to have had like basically a second person. I saw some argument back and forth on the Zodiac Reddit that he could have had a brother somewhere or a partner. Because so what we're talking about is because of the timeline, it's too far to make the phone call that we know Zodiac made, or we don't know Zodiac made, but somebody who knew the attacks had happened before the reports came, called up dispatch and said, there's 2 kids, whatever, south of whatever it is. I'm the one who did it, basically.
Yeah.
So if it is going to be Dennis Land, he's too far away to make the drive from the kids and then get back to them to discover them. But even, and again, I'm not trying to like poke holes in your documentary here, but again, just in the sense of playing devil's avocados, Cecilia sees, like we just talked about, sees the guy, his face, before he puts the mask on, and Dennis Land is the first one to get on site.
Yeah.
So she's not going to give a description of the guy that she just saw to the guy if it's him. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Now, the only thing is that the Cecilia description was given to one detective, wasn't it? Who was a bit iffy about the whole thing, I think. But
so is it, because we see the guy who's, who goes through the whole thing, like, is he this height? That's not Narlo, right?
No, it's another detective. And apparently he'd left out a load of details as well. So there's more, which is one other thing that just makes this case so difficult, because back then they just they weren't organized in the same way that they are now. So you've got all these details, and even like Vallejo, and you've got Vallejo, Napa, and Benicio departments not wanting to share stuff with each other as well.
Yeah,
so
it's that stupid thing of like.
But even so, if Dennis Land is the first one there, she had to have seen him.
I think if it was him and he came back, even in the state that she was in, because we know she did give some details at the very least, I think you're right. I think she would have immediately been screaming, like, get away from me. Definitely. I think without a doubt.
Oh God, it's such a visceral attack. I have these like motions of putting myself, like, the movie does a really good job of capturing I remember the first time I watched that David Fincher film, I really got into the recreations because I didn't realize how accurate it was to the story. I thought that we were seeing basically something new. And I remember even being very irritated with the ending. Like, wait, that's it? Like, you're not going to tell us who did it? But it's like, no, of course not. We don't know who did it. But anyways, the recreations I thought were very riveting. But the attack on Berryessa, I remember when he goes to start like actual stabbing of him, it was like this rush of uncomfortability. Again, like this visceral reaction of like what I guess horror is supposed to truly be. Like, I was horrified at what I was seeing. And the fact later on in life, like learning that was a real thing, like that moment of those 2 kids just kind of standing there, and all of a sudden the guy pulling in a knife and just boom, boom. It's this reaction in itself of why I'm so obsessed with true crime, because it's like the horror of the truth is scarier than anything that could have actually been written. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it hits this part of my reptile brain that you can like hear my voice crack. I don't
you were
like
crying.
It. Oh no, I'm not crying. It's just,
I think you're right. That's why I think I wanted to basically, with the Zodiac documentary that I came up with, was I am obsessed with true crime, and I didn't want to make a true crime channel for documentaries because I wanted to make documentaries about anything and everything that I was interested in. But I think this one was the one I was most excited about doing, because I was like, if I go to watch a documentary and there's a true crime one, I'm picking that above anything else, So I was like,
Wow.
I wanted to try and make something in the same style that I've come to know and love, and throw out things that annoy me about true crime, which is where they kind of, here's the solution, and there's another episode, and I'm like, you've solved the crime. Why is there another episode? I don't,
Yeah.
all the time. So all these little things. So
Well, we talk about
I
it
love
before on podcasts a few times about what makes true crime so interesting, and I think for unsolved cases in particular, there's this sense of us that we need that sense of conclusion, like, right? Like, it's the way stories are told, the way they are, where we have the happy ending for the fairy tale. That when we don't get that, it just becomes this obsessive germ of wanting to, like, you're striving for this sense of conclusion to it. You want to solve it, yeah.
Which is why in mine, I won't give it away, I guess, for people who are watching it, but I don't know if you noticed the Irishman link at the start.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the ending because it's very strange to me. I think it's funny. It's funny, but
I wanted to do it half to annoy people and half to tie the thing together in some way. So yeah.
Whatever. I have my script now, but we're talking about it, so we might as well just get it out of the way. So for anybody that doesn't know, he references the movie The Irishman. I'm actually curious. Is the video monetized?
Yes. But it's within fair use, so it was such a short clip that you're allowed to use it,
That's what I was gonna say, yeah, because it seemed like some of those clips went on long, but I guess they probably didn't hit like the 10 seconds. Because I've tried before, and it's like anything over 10 seconds. But depending
there's a couple of things, and this probably isn't the podcast for this conversation, but basically it's the percentage compared to the actual overall percentage more than seconds of the video.
Oh, interesting. So however long your video is.
Yeah. Also, it's whether it's transformative and in context. So I think the Irishman ones were probably pushing it a bit in terms of in context, but I got rid of the music, changed it out, changed some coloring, and it was transformative and in context. If would it hold up in court? I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
Yeah.
Hey, at the end of the day, all I care about is
in trouble for it. So just leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. If it's green on YouTube, it's good to go. That's all that matters. Yeah, YouTube's the judge as much as they shouldn't be.
It was a very short clip anyway, so I don't think it made much of a difference. But yeah.
So, anyways, people who are watching this are probably confused. The end of the documentary, I had to actually go back and check to make sure it was over. I didn't misclick because it's like you're talking about a subject and then you kind of make this allusion to this movie, The Irishman, and then a clip of The Irishman plays and it's over. There's no, all right, folks, it's been great talking to you, or no YouTube sign off. It's just, it's like poetic like this movie, and then the movie clip plays and then it's over. Walk me through the thought process there. Why did you do it that way?
Were you lazy?
There was supposed to be another 30 minutes, but I couldn't be bothered to edit it. So
I was thinking that.
Oh, dude, I saw your editing screen, and oh my god! I mean, like I said, the quality is up. Yeah, the quality is up there so much. I fancy myself an editor.
It was 200 hours of editing, I think, in total.
Yeah,
makes sense. Nightmare.
Yeah, it was, and it's just me doing it as well, like the entire thing, like filming, editing, music, everything. Well, obviously the music I just get from somewhere, but cutting the music, sound effects, everything.
Yeah, people don't realize that one little 10-second effect or whatever, where like a little title comes over and then it cuts it takes forever.
Oh my! I had to render that thing overnight, and I've got a pretty good computer, but there was so many little effects, like the all of the what am I trying to say? All of the things that come up where it's like telling you who it is or the date, that effect to like change it so it looked like it was being decided.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
All of those.
How did you do
that? Just literally using. So I got all the graphics. Originally I found a font, but it would have been a pain to use that font. So then I had to find all the graphics and like edit them in. So it took forever just to get that thing right.
I figured it was something in your editor where it was like a sweeping transition or something like that. So you went in by hand.
No, there was a transition, but I had to basically put together. So I had to cut up a font and cut up some images to get the right things in place. And then, so it was.
Because there's no lettering font for zodiac symbols.
There is one, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. So I had to kind of play around with it. And
is that weird looking O?
Yeah, all of that stuff. But yeah, the painter thing was basically just I'm sure we'll get onto it at some point, or maybe not, who knows. But there's one main suspect who was a house painter.
We're gonna get there, so don't bury the lead.
Yeah, but as soon as I read that, it constantly the whole way through creating the timeline and planning the thing out, I was like, if it is a house painter, that is just so perfect, because the Irishman, the whole idea is people that you hire to kill someone is I hear you paint houses. And it was just, that thing just kept going at me the whole time. And I wanted something to kind of properly end the documentary on. So I had to link it at the start before you see the crimes and link it at the end. So it was like to kind of tie the thing together. I basically wanted to be a pretentious filmmaker.
People are saying I'm not in Facebook, so I think this chat is a completely different one in the live stream. Sorry, guys. Honestly, I'm getting so roped up in the conversation. I'm trying to pay attention. Here, we'll just address some of these comments here quick. I've been like a good. So Casey says, Mr. Beefy now is there. Could you post a notification for your scheduled show? We did. Yeah, I put it up on Monday, and I always post a reminder in my Discord. But
this
I
happens
guess, like,
on my channel all the time.
I think it's YouTube. I don't think it's you, Casey, because you probably have the bell notification. So it's this, right, guys? There's nothing we can do, right, on our end.
I created the post on Monday, and I'll typically go through on my community page and put, live stream this Monday or whatever. I didn't this week, but I also post in my Discord. So
but even then, Casey should have gotten the message, because I know she has the bell on. I don't know why YouTube does that.
I do Formula One live streams like nearly every week during the Formula One season, and I get at least 20% of like members and people telling me they didn't get the notification, even though I've scheduled it like days before. Yeah,
it's YouTube. YouTube.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So they're just like communicating with each other in the chat. That's all. They're not okay. Yeah. So it wasn't anything like. No, they are. They're communicating with each other. That's it. I thought that I had missed a bunch of comments, but they're just talking to each other. Okay. All right. So where were we here? Okay. So yeah, let's jump to the piece de resistance, as we like to say, the main course, because we're getting pretty late in the long in the tooth here, so to speak. So there he is, the attack that, as I alluded to earlier, really took this from a local threat to more of a national sensation, and that's the murder of Paul Stine,
who, by the way, is 30 there.
Yeah.
Oh, he's 30?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi,
he looks a lot older, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to say
in his mugshot, in particular, he looks like a much 50. Older man.
Yeah. All right.
So for anyone who may need a refresher, this is cab driver Paul Stine, and in San Francisco, he's asked to drive a gentleman from the theater district to the Presidio Heights streets of Washington and Cherry. Now, for me, this is, if we're talking about the arc of our villain, this is the climax. If you were to construct a narrative similar to what Fincher does in his film, the Stine shooting is where our villain has apexed his character arc and will begin his slow descension into obscurity. And I think, I think that fact in particular is key if we want to try and identify whom exactly the Zodiac is and like what his goals were in these attacks. So like leading up to Stine, again, we're seeing this escalation of violence we talked about, starting with the murders of, according to some people, Sherry Jo Bates, who we'll get to, and then that massive spike with Berryessa, where the modus operandi changes. And then all of a sudden, we're coming back to the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
WTF? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, and this is the one where he sent the piece of cloth into the San Francisco Chronicle.
Yeah. So do you think that maybe played a part? Is he knew he wanted to start writing letters, so he just wanted to like bang in a cookie almost or do you think the location again serves a purpose of, if I'm gonna do an attack, I'm gonna do it in San Francisco because it's gonna ramp this up even more? I mean, what do you guys? What's your thoughts?
I don't think it's a location. I think that's way too many brain cells working together. I think it's just case of opportunity.
Cab driver, busy city, lots of stuff happens. You can kind of just walk away and people won't know who you are in the obscurity of it. I like this one was very much, he obviously whoever or whatever did this crime did it just to get that piece of cloth is what it seems like anyway. And I think maybe maybe the whole point here is to do it in a crowded city and coming into like a big neighborhood, lots of people around, where he knows he'll have to walk away from the police. That in somewhat is an escalation as well. That's a middle finger to the police. Like, I did this in broad nightlight. I was going to say daylight, but in nighttime, but in a lit area where I knew police would be there quickly. You know, lots of people could be looking out their windows, hearing gunshots, and he took his time as well to cut the thing out. You know,
Spooky Gnome says, I think he was like, I'm so good, I can do this any place I want. I do think there's a certain amount of he's getting confident. Yeah, cocky. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It also could be playing into that theory that there isn't one Zodiac killer, and this was just some other guy who basically decided I could get away with that too. You know.
You know what? Look, it's not even so far-fetched out of reality because
it's not.
The forensic was not how it is today, and so it's possible. A lot of crazy people were like, "Oh my God, it's my opportunity to try it out."
The question I want answered when it comes to that is was the DNA on all of the letters from the same person?
Yeah, me too.
Didn't I think Spooky Gnome said no?
So there was different DNA.
Did I get that wrong? I must have gotten it wrong because they're having different chat there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, no, from what I understand, though, they had not just a palm print, but they actually had DNA from him resting his hand on the letter. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about DNA on the letter, but it wouldn't surprise me. He wasn't.
And then DNA from the stamp, which is what you're saying. Two sources of DNA is from the letter. So they had sweat from the palm and then saliva from the stamp.
Yeah, and I guess actually they would have different DNA because the ones like he sent, there was one sent to Melvin Belli, and the guy who rang Melvin Belli wasn't apparently the Zodiac killer, because the Z340 cipher after it was cracked said that wasn't me on the television.
Yeah, but the guy who sent a letter to Belli was not the gentleman who called this TV show, but the guy who actually sent a letter to Belli was Zodiac.
Are we sure about that though? Because didn't he offer to he
sent Belli a piece of Stein's shirt.
You're right. Yeah. So it would have been. Yeah. Well, it could have been both, I suppose. There's no way to know. Yeah, it's such a messy case.
Again, it depends on how much stock you put into handwriting. Because if you have handwriting, technically you can connect Bates to Vallejo Benicia to the car door at Berryessa, and then the letters at Stein. So if you're going to go handwriting, technically all of those are confirmed.
And there's the Ray Davis Jr. one, right? The other taxi driver that was shot in 1962.
So you're bringing up stuff. You must have done an extensive research, because you're bringing up cases I've never even heard of before, and I thought I knew all of them.
I watched too much Zodiac Killer stuff over like 4-week period.
Clearly is a fan.
I am the Zodiac.
You've got the look with the horn glasses.
I know,
yeah.
I have an alibi though. I wasn't alive.
No. I was gonna say no. You mastered cloning. Yeah,
yes.
Look at you. You have a secret lab, and every year it's just a new baby.
Yep, that's how I get away with my murders.
So Spooky Gnome says they had stamps that were like liquors, and some were glued on. I heard I've heard that too. It's a partial DNA.
Yeah. I think every DNA sample was only partial anyway. I think, if I remember correctly.
Now, was it partial when they looked at it today? Was it partial when they looked at it then? Because
the latest ones, I think, were partial.
You see,
yeah, because they did just recently, when the whole Golden State Killer thing came down, they redid the DNA samples and tried to do familiar matches.
Yeah,
it's not going to work really well because DNA denatures rather easily. So,
yeah, and I think
get away with it.
Apparently, the FBI has a full DNA sample on record. Apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
Apparently so, yeah.
That's what they say.
So this is my thing, I think.
Tell them to release who the guy is. Otherwise, I say insider job.
Well, according, we haven't had a match yet.
Apparently, yeah. And see, this is the thing. You've got, I don't know if we're there yet, but this is the newest suspect that is kind of...
Yeah. So before we get there, I just want to finish on Stein, right? And I mentioned how I believe the Stein murder is crucial in solving this mystery of who the Zodiac is. And it's not just for the changes in operandi we were just talking about. As I said, the Stein shooting is our apex. It's basically the last confirmed Zodiac we know of. We suspect there may be more, as we said, but the only hard evidence to suggest is that Stein is the last, what we call the canonical 5. I think that's because, as we said, he plays it really close to the chest and he almost gets caught. He gets flagged down by a couple of cops just near blocks from where this crime scene occurs. And, as we discussed in our episode in the documentary, the initial call was for a black man. So they end up letting him go.
Yeah,
of course.
Again, we talk about how lucky this guy is. A few extra seconds or even just like a twinge more suspicion from either one of those officers, and they've got him. There's a world like a multi-universe here or whatever, where they get him. I mean, he's incredibly lucky. So much so that, like, with coupled that, right, with the intensity escalation of Lake Berryessa, it's like he just can't work up the stomach again to kill, right? It's almost like, and I thought about this before, right? You have this massive jump up, this spike, where he's going from shooting to somebody to stabbing. I almost feel like the reason he goes back to the shooting is the stabbing was too much. Like, he thinks that he's ready for this big jump. But again, like, you're going from this tactical mission where in his head where he's like fighting this evil as the Zodiac and he's shooting people in cars, to all of a sudden he's tying people up in a mask and then stabbing people. Like, you're no longer just a military guy fighting off evil. You are a criminal, and you are the worst kind of criminal. So somebody who's a deluded military man, I think that's going to come with a certain amount of, God, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ, like, he's going to experience that stabbing. And like Brian even says that when Zodiac gets done plunging the knife over and over again, and he's kind of hefting, he's taking this big heaping breaths because he's out of breath, he just kind of stands over them. And I think part of him is like, oh my God, almost like he's living with the memory of these two in his head. So that, coupled with Stein, where he almost gets caught, I think he just can't work up the stomach to kill again.
Do you think, though, so there was obviously that they thought it was a black guy, and then they thought it was a white guy, and then it was like the detective who was, or it was a police officer who basically was down the street, said he stopped to talk to someone, or he kind of shone the light on someone, and then it wasn't a black guy, so he continued on, and then got the call to say, oh, that was called in wrong, it was a white guy. Do you actually think, though, that was, because after all of the things that I looked through, I did kind of tend to agree with one of the detectives who said, I think that this guy would have been somewhat covered in blood. I guess there's ways he could get around that. Like, maybe he wasn't wearing.
Yeah, so I heard that too. Let's think about the logistics of this, right? So he grabs the gentleman. He's sitting in the back seat. So for one, you've got the big seat of the cab blocking a lot of the blood spray. He grabs the guy by the back and he shoots in the head. So why is he covered in blood? Because the projectile is going forward.
Of course, yeah, but he's also ruffling around, cutting up the t-shirt.
Okay, so it's just a matter of being careful in the front seat, not to.
The other solution is maybe he just didn't have his jacket on. The last thing he did before he left was put a jacket on, because I think the police officer said he was wearing quite a long coat, I think, if I remember correctly. So that would be the simplest solution.
Well, no, it wasn't long. It was like cut at the waist, like just a basic black jacket.
But it would be quite easy just to put that over you and
walk. I think that theory works. Right, the road with least resistance tends to be the right one, especially when you're in like high intense situation. No, I like that theory of yours. Yeah, you might. Yeah,
and I think if this is a military guy, it goes back to the type of guy who's just prepared and planned ahead for everything, even in these sorts of situations. So I think that's probably the easiest solution. But you're right, if he's shooting from the back, it's going forward. But then I think the entry bullet would still splatter blood backwards.
Nope, it wouldn't.
So Spooky Gnome says, didn't cabs have those little plexiglass windows things? No, and I've seen the pictures of the inside. It was just a regular seat. That back in the 70s, it wasn't like that. Casey says, if we follow that thought map, modern people who some who love murder, and by that, the ones who really get into them, could have the markers to have been copycat killers predisposed to kill.
I agree,
and freedom to blame it on Zodiac. Yeah. Then Zodiac gets pissed and has to kill again, or if he likes the kill, takes the credit. So she's saying, I guess, specific crimes weren't Zodiac, and he's taking the blame.
Yeah.
So she's alluding to kind of what I'm trying to get to here, right? Because he leans into the letters so much so after the Stein murders, and I think he, like I said, he can't work up the stomach to kill again. You know, maybe he even tries. He readies himself. He goes and finds a victim, and just as he's ready to go, you know, quote unquote, as he puts it, as he so eloquently puts it, do his thing. He can't shake the gripping fear of being stopped by those two cops. Or, you know, again, the faces of Brian and Cecilia are just burned into his brain. So, you know, at that point, he's only really left with one option, and it's to write more letters, right? It's the only thing he's able to get that high from and get that experience. You know, killers, they always talk about keeping trophies, and they can relive the experience over and over again. Like, the only way they're able to get even close to that is by going back to their little trophies. And with him, it's the letters. The letters are the extension of the crimes.
Yeah.
So he's so desperate to recapture that feeling he had that he enjoyed, but yet so traumatized by the fear of being captured, he starts inserting himself into murders that he really had nothing to do with, and like trying to drum up this sense that he's almost like waiting at every quarter. So these letters, right? Like Alistair, we've looked at some of these, but the community is kind of divided. A lot say that the murders were the driving force and that the letters were incidental. Others, like myself, believe that the murders, they were the driving force until the incident of almost being caught, wherein the letters now become the passion. What do you guys think?
I'm with you on this one, Beefy. Yeah, I agree.
I'm with I think the letters did take over. I also have a different theory, which is a wild one that I got shouted at a lot in the comments for my one. And
go for it.
Literally what is going to annoy so many people about the end of the documentary, because the whole thing is, when I make something and I know I have a bit of a crazy opinion, what I like to do is go, here's all the facts and stuff, make your opinion. By the way, this is mine. Bye. And then run away, which is kind of what I do, which annoyed some people. But
yeah, no poop, of course.
I did get the idea while I was doing all this that it would make perfect sense for this guy to be like a gun for hire, or like a killer for hire at some point, right? So you've got the drug bust idea at the start. So this is like a kid's gonna squeal, so they hire some guy to kill this kid, right? Then the husband in the exact same area manages to run into the same guy. He does a kill for hire. But then you've got the point of he's called in now to kind of throw this off the scent, right? So he's come up with this Zodiac persona to throw people off. Oh, it's a serial killer. Crap. You know, it's not, there's nothing else to this.
Oh, okay. So I'm glad you're expanding upon this.
It's a ridiculous theory, but hear me out for a second.
So wait, just so I understand, only the first two are the...
Here's what I'm thinking then. Then when you get to the third one,
right,
it's not him, but it's someone else that basically, you know, wants to kill someone. And then he starts sending the letters to do. This is where it all falls apart. But I was like, could it be that this is a gun for hire type who basically got hired for certain things, but also maybe just went out and killed people himself as well, you know? And then there was some theories catching on. So the Paul Stein thing was basically let's reinforce this so no one checks into the other things, you know. It's a ridiculous theory, but I thought
the Paul Stein is the cover-up crime.
I absolutely love it. It's completely ridiculous, but I love it because the imagination literally took wings and flew away, dog.
And there is as much evidence for that as there is for anything else.
No, I love it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm about to say. It's like this. That's what I mean by it goes off in so many branching, diverging paths. Is there really is evidence to support both theories, that there's one killer or that there's several. Some people believe there was a group of people and there was like a trigger man, or, you know, a trigger man and a letter man, and then like a mastermind. Some people think that there were actually a group, but they were different killers at each. And if you look at like the mug shots or the police drawings, they almost look like different people. Like
the cover of mine looks like Sting.
I don't know about that. Does he? Hang on.
It looks like Sting.
That doesn't look like Sting.
It definitely looks like Sting.
It's Sting. It's him. Let's get him.
Sting is the Zodiac.
Yeah,
let's get him.
Zodiac.
Yeah, the thing about the group, the thing about the group where multiple people doing it, or like the gun for hire, I think like you could say it was just like, okay, it started with gun for hire. Then this guy was like, oh, by the way, like, we can just get away with any crime by associating with the serial killer. Because when you think about it, at some point they just went into chaos mode and we're like, yeah, we're going to bomb school buses. You know what I mean?
So we're about to get into the bombings, which are just absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's I know.
Yeah, this was great. That was one of my favorite pieces of. No, sorry, that came out wrong. That was one of the best pieces to do in the video because I thought it was like, this is just such an. My mother watched it, and I think she said that was the thing that got to her the most. She's like, "Can you imagine living there, just every day, going, Mike's kid can't get on a school bus now. You're just so in fear. How crazy it is."
I mean, it really reached pandemonium levels. Like we said in our episode, it was like basically the equivalent of virality. You know, we hear all these viral videos and these viral stories nowadays. That really wasn't a thing back in the 70s, but this was viral.
Yep. Insane.
So as you allude to in these letters, we get these detailed bomb descriptions, and they're like practically borderline on engineering plans. Like it's it's rather crude, but you know, this sandwiched between the psychotic ramblings and demands, at a certain point, you know, claiming he's going to blow up a school bus or, you know, quote, shoot at the tires and pick out kiddies as they come bounding out.
God.
Yeah.
How seriously do you guys take these threats? Like, is he just completely blowing smoke, or is there really a world where Zodiac plants a bomb somewhere but just never works up the energy?
The thing is, from the diagrams and everything else, they obviously, him or they, and I'm going to say it that way because I think it could go either way, honestly.
Yeah.
Obviously, whoever this was had the ability to create those bombs because the diagrams and so on that were given, I think the police did say these could actually create a bomb this way. It's a feasible way to create a bomb. So the person knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. And I don't think you know, obviously there was the letter, wasn't there, straight afterwards where he said, if you think I was going to shoot at children, you've all lost your marbles or something along.
That's what I was about to get into, right? Is
he basically
how credible the question, how credible are these threats? At a certain point, Zodiac even admits that he had no intention of pursuing this, you know, claiming that the police really thought he would attack a school bus, and the way he describes, they got to have
what I
would
heads. Love someone to look at, and it's probably too late now, but I couldn't find anything while I was looking at this, but to go into my, you know, my crazy theory I just threw out that people shout at before, I would love to know during this school bus time when all of the police for 2 hours a day at the very least were just basically, was it 4,000 miles of coverage they had to cover? So the entire police force basically was just following these buses. I would love someone to figure out what crimes took place during those hours. Because if my theory is right, then you would assume that they caused all this chaos, did a few crimes.
As a distraction.
Yes.
Wow.
And that would feed back into is this just a couple of guys or a group of guys who are just basically getting away with murder and applying it all to a serial killer? You know?
But hold on. I thought like whenever a police force is overwhelmed, they actually request help from either a nearby district or the FBI. So I think
let's remember though, at this time that the Vallejo, Benicia, and Napa wouldn't even talk to each other. So I don't know if it would have been the same back then.
They almost needed a federal agent to come in and take over the investigation for that reason.
Yeah, like you're right, Alistair. I think generally that's what they should do, but I wonder because I didn't hear anything. You would assume in that situation they call in like National Guard and military and everything.
Well, that's the criteria now. Is if you have a criminal who's crossing state lines, they call in the FBI. So that for that exact reason is because state jurisdictions differ so much.
And I went through literally all of the every single one of the sit downs where they did the interviews with the police between the press and the police and, you know, all those conferences they did. And they never once talked about calling in the military or the guard, or they just were like, we have all of our police on this.
Oh God, that must have been fun going through all that footage. Some of that stuff is pretty dry.
Do you want to know how many hours there was?
How many?
There was, I think by the end of it, I went through 63 hours of footage in total.
And you used like what, a couple minutes?
Yeah. I used, well, it wasn't of all that, but I mean between the news documentaries and the
oh, I see, and everything. Yeah, that's actually not that bad. Yeah, so
it wasn't
watched Zodiac stuff for like a week.
Yeah,
week and a half.
Oh, that's a lot of work.
It was fun. I read like 3 books as well. It was interesting.
Oh, you got me beat.
So what you read? Because Graysmith has 2. Did you? What's the other guy's name? Michael Butterfield. He's got a good one.
There was another one off. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up, but it was terrible.
Yeah,
I don't think I read the whole thing.
Did you read any of what's the guy's name? Earl Van Best, my daddy? Because that's even a whole another branching Zodiac theory.
I watched the documentary.
Daddy did it.
Yeah, I watched. There was I literally left that out, but I had so many clips of different people saying their father was the Zodiac, And I
Yeah,
was like,
if
I'm
you
just
go
going to leave
into
this out.
YouTube videos, and you probably got comments too. People think that their dad's Zodiac. It's a very common thing. Of
Most
like
people
in
in
the
the
Reddit
comments
too.
told me that Ted Cruz's dad was the Zodiac killer.
Oh yeah. No, most people say it's
Love
actually
it.
Ted Cruz himself. Ted Cruz is the Zodiac.
I'm so glad I'm not the one saying it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go.
Good.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
Ted Cruz.
yeah, I got. If you look through, there's 1,000 comments, I believe, on that YouTube, and a good chunk of them are just telling me that Ted Cruz or Ted Cruz's dad was the serial.
Oh, much you love YouTube comments.
They're so good. But yeah, this thing
So
was pandemonium.
yeah. To further bolster his intimidation card, he's it's like he's going for an intimidation role and wants advantage, or it's a little D&D humor for you. But after terrorizing the nation with these empty threats, he then calls the U.S. stupid for believing that that he would even do this. It's like the world's first gaslighter. It's pretty awesome. It's,
Yeah, the
it
world
just
first
goes to show
gaslighter.
what a liar this guy is, and he goes on to really dive into that by taking all kinds of claims that he's committed all kinds of murders that I'm fairly certain he had little to no involvement in. I mean, Christ, in California alone, it seemed like serial killers were just popping up every other month, especially at this
The good
time.
weather.
Was it the last letter? Sorry, Alistair. Sorry.
No. I was gonna say just put a couple blizzard in there and you'll see they stay home.
Yeah, that's all they had to do. It's an off day for the children. It would have
Right.
been a lot easier, but yeah. Was it the last letter, which was like the Tosky? I'm not sure if it was the last letter or the Tosky letters, if you want. That he said 37 victims, wasn't it? 37
36.
0? 36 0.
0, yeah.
Yeah.
Guy's a liar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after this whole bust thing, the Zodiac case kind of falls out of the zeitgeist until one day a woman and police are able to establish a connection to a murder that took place many years before the murder of Faraday and Jensen. And it's of a woman named Sherry Jo Bates.
Yeah.
There she is.
Oh,
Oh, no, that's Kathleen. Where is she? Oh, I guess I missed her picture.
I was going to say, I was like, that does not look like Sherry Jo Bates.
No, that's Kathleen. Yeah. I took her. Did I have her picture? I guess I don't have it in here. I thought I had it licked up, but we've seen her. People who have seen our episode know what she looks like. So anyone who needs a refresher, Sherry was working in a library studying for an exam until it's time to leave and her car won't start. A man graciously offers to aid, in which he walks down with her a dark alley and stabs her to death.
Yeah.
But the key here is shortly afterwards, the newspapers get sent a letter claiming credit, and the letter is signed Z. So how much stock do you put in this theory that this was Zodiac, Jason?
I mean, like, it's hard to tie it, but at the same time, all of the features of that they all do link up to Zodiac. Like, the car, well, I guess the car depends on whether you believe the Kathleen
I was about to ask you, like, what are you alluding to? Because there really actually isn't much to connect those two.
No, because I was going to say you'd have to say that the Kathleen Johns one is connected as well.
It should be added too that Zodiac, he never mentions Bates until police make that connection and gets out in the media.
Yeah.
Only then does he claim it was him.
And again, this, I'm telling you, it's a gun for hire. No, but there was white paint on the watch. But yeah,
the watch.
I don't know. Now that you say it, there's not actually much that links it back.
It's again, the letters, that's basically it.
Or the Kathleen Johns incident. Without that, then there's no real link to it. You're right. Yeah, and he does take credit for it. But
Kathleen Johns, she basically gets abducted and then tucks and rolls, and there's really nothing to connect that it's a Zodiac attack, except that when she's in the police station, she points at a wanted poster and says that that's the man who connected her. And then again, once it gets out in the media, Zodiac, he writes this letter.
Yeah.
And you can see here, I have a little list starting with a woman and her baby that I gave a rather interesting ride to. And again, this is after it gets out in the media for a couple hours evening months back then, and me burning her car. And that's really all we have to go on that this is Kathleen. So what do you think? Do you think this is real?
Again, this one, like, this is the problem with tying these together, because Kathleen Johns' case, I think that if it was her, then why was her descriptions not similar? And also, she was one who survived and was sitting beside him,
Mhm.
right? So, like, you've got to think that surely Graysmith and so on couldn't have connected this one directly to it in reality, because surely she would have known it was Arthur Allen or one of these other guys straight away.
And
Like, she
that's another
saw the
thing.
guy.
Like, my theory with John's and with a lot of people who come out of the woodwork after the fact is they're like chasing that Zodiac clout. It's like the
Mhm.
story has become this like story of fable, and they all
Very
want their little
It's
Zodiac
also
5 minutes.
it's also the simplest way to get away with something. Just blame it on someone else, you know. And it was so heavily in the news that it would have been so easy to just go, show me that paper clip there of that Zodiac thing. I'll just make some up, you know.
Well, she would go on to claim that like everybody and their brother was Zodiacs. Like at one
Yeah.
point, she tells detectives it's Arthur Lee Allen, and then somebody comes to her and she says that she knows in her head and her mind that it's Lawrence Kane. I mean, she's a few
Yeah.
steps removed from saying the Monopoly Man was Zodiac.
And,
It's
and
like-
wasn't Lawrence Kane was also linked then to a hotel disappearance? So there was another
so
disappearance
Lawrence
there.
Kane was connected to Donna Last, who was a
That's the
nurse.
one. Yes, yeah. But it wasn't it outside a casino or hotel or something. She went missing, I think.
Oh yes, you're correct. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we're really getting into the speculatory victims here. Like
Yeah.
Zodiac doesn't even come right out and say that he's connected to Last. He
No.
kind of alludes to it through a series of cryptic messages, including it's basically just a postcard with a picture of trees,
Mhm.
and he takes a magazine cutout and spells out "Peek Through the Pines."
Yeah,
And that's
which is
really
from the same location.
more or less all we have to connect to Zodiac. The
That
method of
one of the decryptions, I think one person decrypted one of the shorter, it was the Z23, I think, and it said, "My name is Kane." Or
yeah,
that's what,
again, but that's if that suspect is the same one, but Kane
and
doesn't
also,
connect to the end.
can I just point out, as a person who I was a software developer for a long time, did a lot of security stuff, encryption stuff, and so on. It is almost impossible to decrypt something with that short amount.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, it's so small, and especially with some of these ciphers where they have multiple symbols to
Mhm.
depict a certain letter. The FBI couldn't even determine whether or not the solution was correct or not because
Yeah.
it's impossible.
Like the decryption of the Z340, which is the big one that they decrypted most recently, that would be
Yeah.
much more reliable than decrypting like a 16 character piece, because it's just, you've nothing to compare that to as it continues, if that makes sense. So it's so hard to know if that's accurate or not.
Yeah. Basically, we're saying that there's no credibility to him saying it's Kane. And
No.
again, Kane isn't connected to any of the other. People are probably losing track because this thing just goes out in so many different directions. It's insane. There's like so many different theories and speculations, and this person did this and this date and that. It's like we're kind of going off into like crazy
The rabbit hole, you call it?
the picture of Charlie from the Sunny in Philadelphia with the like the yarn
Running
of the
around,
pictures, and
yeah.
we even kind of sound like that. Like, well, if you connect Kane to Bates, but Bates doesn't connect to Zodiac, and Kane has to be affiliated with the original Zodiac guys to even be connected to Jerry Joe Bates. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Like I said, look, I think the most obvious solution here is my theory. But anyway, no, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
So let's get down to that here, because you keep on talking about, like, we've been saving this dessert here, and it's the most recent guy that everybody talks to, and it's this man,
Gary
here,
Francis Stamp, Post.
the Post. I always kind of laugh when this comes up because, like, the way this news was released, a lot of people or a lot of media sources deliberately worded this in new quote unquote break as if the case had been solved. Like, the fact of the matter is the case is not solved, right?
No.
A group of amateur and former detectives believed that they had identified a new suspect based on, this is key here, circumstantial evidence, and are making all kinds of baseless claims that they have like a whistleblower inside the FBI who confirmed Post was their suspect. They point to the biggest, and this is like their end all be all, right? Is that the 3 scars on the man's head. Hang on, I think I have a picture here. The 3 scars on the man's head match the police sketch, when it is very obvious that this was meant to be like,
and also, why is
their age?
Why are they using a photo of Michael J. Fox there? That's what I'm most concerned about. Yeah, it does actually look like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future a little bit.
It does. I find this whole scar thing like so rich.
It's just, Yeah, and like even if you look at the photos of him, the scars are not that visible anyway. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't know if
Well,
that would be
are
the
they
first
even
thing you'd remember.
scars, or are they just like that's the way his
Forehead
are
folds.
those? That
Yeah.
just looks like wrinkles
The
to me.
the
That's
thing,
not
if
scars.
if I was the victim in that case, right, and I'm looking at him there, unless they were scars that were literally done the week before, if they looked like that, I just think they were just weird head wrinkles. You know, I'd be like, oh, he had some strange head wrinkles.
Yeah, did they even confirm that they are scars? Because they just look like age lines to me.
The problem with me and the so here's my problem with the Gary Francis Post thing. And I watched, I think it was a 2-hour podcast of them talking about it. And everything they kept saying was, you know, oh, and we have more evidence than this, but we're putting it into a documentary. I'm like, so are you just selling a documentary here, or
Yeah.
have you got real evidence? Because the simple thing is, they say they have all this access to FBI and so on, but the FBI have said, and I think we talked about this earlier, they have said they have a DNA profile. So if the
Yeah.
FBI knew it was okay, so you think it's this guy,
Yeah, go to
we've
his son,
got
make the
familial-
connection.
they would have done it and announced it already, because it's a big
Yep.
win for the FBI. It's like, hey, we've closed the case, and it's like a really quick win for the FBI.
That's why I mean it's so irresponsible of them to like plaster on the news. So like I had people sending me this case like, oh, they solved Zodiac, and it's like, no, they didn't.
But if it's
People come
not
up-
him, then it ruins the ending to my documentary where they play the Irishman.
Yeah,
clip.
that's true.
So
Yeah,
that-
and the
that,
painting,
you know,
the painting.
yeah.
Yeah, he was there at the painting party with the detective guy that they think was connected with it, and
Yeah, it was a Hoffman
Arthur
was
Lee
also
Allen,
there.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and then Farron's ex-husband or whatever. Yeah, everybody
They
was
were
at this big painting
all of
party.
the Zodiacs were at the painting party. All of the Zodiacs.
Yeah, all of them. I mean,
Yeah.
to be honest, dude, they come up with new suspects like this all the time. And if they blasted on the media every time a new suspect name came up, they would have solved this crime like 100 times over. Like, someone puts forth a new suspect in this case like every other month.
Mhm.
I find it rich, too, that you show it in your documentary that Tom Voight, who is a pretty big name in the Zodiac community, he founded ZodiacKiller.com.
Mhm.
They show his name on the news. It's in your documentary, and he quotes like, what they are doing, it's irresponsible. This can't be him, or like something to that effect. And he is one of the biggest offenders of pushing his new suspect as like the one.
Yeah.
I think I actually saw a news story of him doing the same thing, saying his suspect is the one, claiming they'd solved it. And it's his suspect, Richard Gaikowski. And
Yeah.
then he was up there on the news, just like he's criticizing them for doing, saying the same thing, that we've solved it. It's irrefutable evidence. We have a whistleblower. This person, look, I'm here to refute it. It's
Yeah.
neither of these guys, because if it was, we would know.
I haven't seen anything apart from, to be honest, the evidence that seems until they release their documentary that they're selling.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any evidence that covers that. And I think the evidence for Gary Francis Post at the moment is about as strong as the evidence for Arthur Lee Allen. Like, there's nothing concrete. It's all
like
just
his shoe size, and then
Yeah.
like people coming out of the woodwork afterwards saying he confessed.
he wore
And then
glasses.
again, the scars. Yeah. So dumb.
Yeah. He wore
Like, again,
glasses and was alive during the time. It must be him.
If that's what you're pointing to as irrefutable evidence, I am here to refute it.
It's all circumstantial. There's nothing
just looking
concrete.
for their clout. It's just more Zodiac clout chasing, like I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't think this will ever be solved, if I'm honest.
I think the guy's dead.
No, well, more than dead. But yeah, I don't think it will ever be solved either.
This is the thing. I think even if if it's solved, it's not going to be like the Golden State. I don't think they're going to solve it while he's alive still. I think it's going to be he'll be gone.
Yeah. Well, Golden State, he was alive. It's just that he's so old. Like, we didn't even get a trial, really.
He basically got away with it, didn't he?
Yeah, he got away with it.
Yeah.
Fucking guy. We were going to talk about him for today's episode, and I'm still back and forth about whether or not I want to cover it, because there's so much essay in that story. It's a hard case to cover on YouTube.
Amazing documentary, that, though. I'll Be Gone in the Dark. So good.
Yeah, I read that book actually by Patton Oswalt's wife, Michelle McNamara. It's incredible.
Really good. But yeah, I don't think they're catching. I personally don't think they're catching him. I think they've looked at enough suspects now where the DNA doesn't match that it's like, that's the only way they're going to quote unquote solve it is with a DNA match.
Familial DNA, yeah, and he'll be dead.
Yeah, so maybe they'll solve it through familial DNA in the future, but I don't know.
But even that fades away over time. So After a
Yeah.
few generations, there'll be nothing left. It'll just
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
one of those cases.
I look, at the end of the day, AI is here and that'll solve everything. So
AI will solve
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Everybody get ready. We're all gonna be unemployed very soon.
AI is like alcohol. It's the cause of and solution to all of our problems. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really gross what they're doing to this. That they're just putting forth that it's irrefutably this post guy, because there's nothing more than circumstantial evidence to suggest that they're posthumously sullying what is basically an innocent man's name with no definitive proof to do so.
Did that guy get any backlash?
The group that put forth no, like people were just like,
Post is he's dead, isn't he? He's passed away now.
That's what I'm saying. It's like there's a reason we have a procedure and diplomacy and like rights. It's to protect us from this. Like it almost
shouldn't be able to
freaks me out.
You shouldn't be able to come out and say we know it's him, because they are very matter of fact.
You can if you put the word allegedly in front.
Yeah,
but they're not doing that. They're putting
not
on the news, Zodiac Killer solved. It's this guy, and his kids are like, they won't even comment on it. Can you imagine being this guy's family and your dad's face is all over the news saying this guy's the Zodiac Killer?
I'd be like, Dad's making us some money from beyond the grave. Let's get some defamation lawsuits going here.
Let's get some serious lawsuits.
Yeah.
See stuff like that.
It really makes me scared of like what can happen after you're dead. It's like that news story that went out recently of the girl who had a baby with a dead guy from the morgues. It's like, Jesus, once you're gone, anything can happen. You can have kids, you can become a serial killer. Like, what else can happen to you? It's Jesus.
Yeah. I don't care. I won't care though when I'm dead. Because what is it? The old statement, being dead is like being stupid. It's only painful for other people.
Oh my God. What a statement.
Yeah, I think Ricky Gervais said it, but he definitely wasn't the first person to say it. I've heard my dad or someone else say that before.
Wow.
It's an old statement.
Yeah, we're really going for some hard takes this episode. Yeah. Normally we just talk about politics. Now we're like putting forth that there is no afterlife and everything. And we're really if you don't have an open mind, get the F out. So I say at the beginning of every episode.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying, even if there is an afterlife, I think if you're in heaven or hell, you probably least of your concerns are some lawsuits back home.
Yeah, fair enough.
But to be frank, I mean, if you close your eyes and picture how heaven and hell will be like, because in heaven you have to pray all day. In hell, you get to twirl, twerk, and have a good old time. You have to do all the sins. So which one do you pick?
Yeah, but you got to take that pineapple, the upside down pineapple every day, like a little Nicky, and
I think I think after a few goes of that, you'll probably get so used to it that you just don't care.
Yeah, you start to enjoy it. As long as you're sex. Yeah. I mean, technically, if you become a sadist, everything is sexual. It's just a matter of bringing it there.
I think you could probably, if you just hold out and put on a brave face the first couple of times, and then the third time you kind of look back at Satan and go, "You got anything bigger?" He's probably like,
he's gonna be like, you know what? We need to find something else.
Come on, you're in with us now. You can help us torture the others.
He does that thing like, shucks, you got me. You did it. You turned it around on me, you rascal.
That's it. We're sending you back as a ghost.
You know what? Where I got that from? So
where'd you get it from?
So my mom is religious, and I remember when I was a young kid, she was like, "You want to go to heaven, not in hell?" And I asked her like, "Oh, what do people do in heaven?" And she was like, "Well," she said, there was a little pause. She's like, "You praise the Lord." I said, "All day?"
Yeah,
every day. So I said, "Is it like going to church all day, every day?" And she thought like it was. She was like, "Yeah," and I was like, okay."
Yeah, no, I grew up in Catholic Ireland when I was young. It's not very Catholic anymore. Like it still is, I suppose, but Ireland was very Catholic when I was a kid. Like I went to a Catholic boys' school. And
interesting.
Yeah, it was really funny. By the time I got to secondary school, I remember we were in religious studies, and in front of one of the religious teachers who was very religious, I said, "I think Jesus is probably my favorite fictional character." And she literally would not talk to me for like a year. And I was like, it was a joke. But yeah. Thankfully, I wasn't alive when my dad went to that same schools that I did, where they were able to like beat the children.
Wow.
Yeah. He got in trouble for punching one of them back, but yeah, that's a different story for a different time.
A different podcast.
Yeah, probably. I'll start my own podcast, Catholic Beatings with Jason Hassett.
Well, listen, we've gone just about 2 hours here. So I didn't imagine it's taking up so much time, but once we got going, I just had so much stuff I wanted to talk to you about. This was really has been great. We have like another 5 minutes for the 2 hour mark, so I just want to ask you a couple questions. You read my mind too. You've been really good this episode of like kind of just bringing me along in the areas I wanted to talk about.
And
how did you? Yeah, so you say you grew up in Ireland and now you're in Mexico. What made you want to make the move?
Really spur of the moment, to be honest, which sounds ridiculous. So in 2018, I think it was 2018, I decided, because I was working from my laptop and I was working for a guy at that point, and I was thinking of starting my own business again anyway, because I had my own business, fell apart, started working for someone. Anyway, that's a long story, but I was able to work from my computer because I'm a programmer, and I said, I'm going to feck off to, South America and Cuba and America for 8 weeks.
Awesome.
And he's like, what? You can't do that. And I was like, well, then fire me. And he's like, nah, it's fine. You can do that. I'll keep paying you. I was like, cool.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't find another programmer in that quick of a time. So it was easier just to keep me working remotely. So I just, no, I have my own business now. Okay, so, and I do YouTube. So I'm all right. But so basically I went to Cuba, loved that. And then I was supposed to kind of go around South America, but I arrived in Mexico for 2 weeks and absolutely loved it. And then decided, I'm going to come back to live here. And everyone I was talking to were like, no, you're not. Like, you're just saying that. And I was like, no, you'll see me back here in a few months. So I went on a bus from Monterrey in Mexico to New York on Greyhound.
Woo! That's a long ride.
It was 4 days. I got stopped by... yes, I didn't realize until about, Alabama that apparently Greyhound is quite dangerous.
You didn't know that?
Had no idea. I was coming from Mexico. I figured, how dangerous could America be? Turns out quite.
Well, good point.
Turns out quite dangerous.
In what context? Like, do you get stopped by criminals or something?
Well, every single bus stop, I was offered cocaine. I turned it down because there was police around. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I just didn't
Plus,
want
you're going to be sitting there in the chair for the next 8 hours, coming down like.
Yeah. But the other thing was, it was like every second person was like, oh, you're from Ireland. That's amazing. I just got out of prison. And I was like, okay. And some guy told me afterwards on the bus, he's like, yeah, so listen, you probably shouldn't like talk to people because basically they give Greyhound vouchers to people coming out of prison. So most of these bus stops are just prisoners going to. I was like, what the hell is this? And then in Texas,
no idea.
It was like, as soon as I got to Texas, Ireland, remember in Ireland, our police don't have guns, right? So this was crazy for me. In Texas, in McDonald's, it said on the front,
they carry a bottle of Jameson. That's how they do their shots. It's not shots. It's 2 shots of Jameson to calm everybody down.
We have specialist police that show up with guns if something kicks off, but otherwise they just carry around bats. But so I got to Texas. And
it's better than in America where they're just like shooting everybody for no reason.
Well, in America, I got stopped at the border. Hot take.
Look at Alistair's face. Yeah.
Well, I got stopped at your border for half an hour.
I had when you said that. No, continue, Jason.
Sorry, I was
shots fired.
No. Jason, continue.
No, it's cool. I was just gonna say at the border, there was like me and 500 Mexicans in the border of Laredo, and they waved to me to call me up. They were obviously like, "Oh, it's an American. Like, come to the front. You're more."
So the white man to come forward.
Yeah. So they
look at
basically.
Bubba.
So they come up to the border, and I hand him my passport, and he's like Irish. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" I was like, "I'm going to New York," and he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Could you just come into this room for a minute?" So they pull me into a room and they're like, where's your visa? I was like, I have an ESTA. And he's like, you need to have X and Y visa. And I'm like, well, your website didn't say that. He's like, the website's wrong. And I'm like, well, that seems like your problem, not mine.
Yeah, right.
Wait, you need a visa if you're Irish?
Just a quick one. And I had the ESTA, but apparently to cross the border, and I didn't know this because at the time when I checked with the border crossing, it said you just need the ESTA and you're fine. But I needed to get an I-94, but it didn't say that. So he said the website's wrong. Turns out the website was wrong, but I thought I was correct in saying, that's not really my problem. That's your problem, And I tried to have banter, and apparently you can't banter with the border patrol. So then he was like, what were you doing in Cuba? And I was like, relaxing and drinking. He's like, what were you doing in Mexico? I was like, I had a couple of friends there, so I went to visit. He's like, what do your friends do? They have their own businesses. And he's like, what businesses? I was like, I don't know. That's their business. Go ask them. So this didn't go.
You were testy with the immigration person.
I had been on a bus for 9 hours, and
they can deny you with no question.
Yeah. Oh, this is where it gets funny, right? Because after about 10, 15 minutes of this, I started getting quite annoyed because I was like, because I turned around and was like, I haven't done anything. You can check I've already said you could check my bag. I'm just visiting, coming through on a bus. I was like, when you come to my country, we just say, hey, have a good time. There's a nice bar down there. We don't ask you anything. So I said, you know what? And I literally went, you know what? If you want, just do me a favor. Send me back to Mexico. It was fun anyway. I'll fly from there. And he just looked at me and he's
probably
like,
your best bet to begin with would just to fly.
He just gave me a look and then he kind of went off for a second. He's like, it's $12 for the I-94. And I just looked at him. I said, listen, you've just pulled me into a room accusing me of stuff. I said, send me back to Mexico. I'm not paying your visa. Like, I'll just go on my way.
Casey says, this is where it gets funny. It's all funny. Yeah.
and then he literally just went, fine. And he stamped it and said, have a good time.
You're lucky.
Yeah, well, the worst he could have done is throw me back to Mexico.
Yeah, he just not let you in. Nobody
where it came from. Questions. Look, we're getting into the 2-hour mark, but I did want to just ask you really quick here. So what's the next project? Because I'm excited for your new documentary. What are you gonna work on? And
there's going to be a documentary every month or every 2 months. So the one that's coming out in like 10-15 days is about the Titan submersible. So that's going to be the very next one.
Oh, the one that got crushed.
Yeah, the one that went.
Oh, yes. Who made that noise? Was that you, Jason?
I can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome.
It's quite serious. I don't do any pop noises in the documentary.
I know you're a lot funnier than I thought you were going to be. You're so serious in your docs. I did not picture this.
I figure when I'm
level of brevity,
I should give it a certain level of respect.
Fair enough.
So I'm doing that one, and then the main one that I'm working towards, and I'm not going to give too many names and stuff because obviously we don't know if the project will go ahead. But the plan is to do a Coca-Cola documentary about the coca leaf and what Coca-Cola has been doing on that.
It's gonna be cool. You got to go to Atlanta and hit the Coke place, all the fountains,
and to New Jersey where they process the coca leaf and deny that to the bitter end, and then to Peru where
I was about to say no, they don't.
And to Peru where they're trying to take away the rights of Peruvians. And there's an author who wrote a couple of books that sold millions of copies who's like co-producing it with me, so it's going to be really, really fun.
Oh wow, interesting.
Which is nuts for me because I just made some YouTube videos and now I'm. The last thing I'll say as well is. I'm now legally a director because I just got a document the other day to say that a distribution company in LA are going to distribute the Zodiac documentary to some streaming services. We're not sure which yet, but so I'm legally a director. That's
incredible. Congratulations, man. That's awesome. So you're going to be
I'm just happy because people who went to It's just because people who went to film school will be like, you're not a director. I'll be like, I have it in legal writing, buddy.
Yeah.
I got it in legal writing.
I bet you it'll do well. For anybody that hasn't seen it yet, and I guess a lot of you probably haven't, but I urge you to, I know we did a lot of spoiling here, but I urge you to go check out this man's documentary, and not just this one. He has another great one about UFOs that's, like we said earlier, almost got 1 million views. That's also really good.
There's one about AI as well. If you want to watch that and then realize that all future work is pointless because we'll all be useless in 5 years, that's a great one.
No, we're all going to be engineers.
No, we're all going to be useless.
No, someone has to make sure the AI functions correctly.
The AI will do that. That's
just to answer everything. It's like the end all be all of like, and then just the AI will do that.
AI is basically the new god.
The AI will do that. Yeah.
It's a serious issue that Congress has to regulate because it's a problem.
Yeah. Once they get rid of Zodiac, who is Ted Cruz, apparently that's the first thing.
He's gonna get into into Congress. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, this has been tons of fun. Again, everybody, get down into that description and check out the link to this documentary. That was awesome because I've had tons of fun talking to you about it, and I loved watching it. And make sure you hit the subscribe button to his channel because there's all kinds of good documentaries he's working on, and they're just great. I'm sure they're all going to be just as successful as your previous works and just as great. They're like I said, they are Netflix level. Like you could watch these documentaries on a streaming service, which they'll be on, and they'll feel just as home. So they're out for free. He's a generous
I hope that
man.
by next year these all look terrible. That's the hope. I hope that next year's quality is so good that this year's quality looks terrible. That's the plan.
Well, we're going to wrap this up here. Alistair, do you want to give us our final thought?
The final thought.
I wanted to share really quickly and this could be on the final thought. Um, Remember when we talked about how like we walk into a building, we see someone potentially injured, and then you have to be careful. You don't want to touch evidence. I'm going to tell you an interesting story about how that happened in real life, and nobody did anything. So it was at a gym. Weight fell on someone's back. The shoulder was no longer visually attached to the person's torso, but the skin was still there, and the guy was screaming for help. But insurance says if an injury of this type occur, nobody helps. And for a good 15 minutes, nobody got close to this man. And he was like, help me! I mean, they called 911, they called the ambulance, but the insurance said the protocol, do not touch him or move him.
Oh my God.
Does the protocol say you can TikTok it though?
No, but okay. I mean, I don't even know if people took their phone or not, but to be fair on the insurance, the reason is because because there's a big serious artery that goes there. So if you move the person, you could potentially kill them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, and that's in defense of the insurance. But in terms of the visual, it was absolutely jarring to see a person screaming, help me, pinned down to the floor with an arm not attached to the torso, and staff saying, get away, get away, get away. It was like, oh, look at that. But the person survived.
Awful.
And they went to immediate surgery, and they made a full recovery. But in terms of the visual was absolutely atrocious.
That's insane.
Oh my God, help it!
So how are you segueing that into a final thought? What's the final thought out of that? If you see somebody dying, just step
Run!
away. Don't get involved. Yeah.
If you see someone dying, call insurance.
Call 911 while you are running away.
You call the insurance and ask, am I allowed call 911? That's what you do. That's insane.
No, write a letter into the newspaper and claim credit. That's what you need.
Only in America would someone see someone nearly dying and go, wait, think of the insurance.
Yeah. Only in America.
Only in America.
Oh, Lena says she just subbed to Jason. Good. Everybody else do that. Go sub. Go sub right now.
Thanks.
And if you're watching on replay crew, make sure you sub to this channel and hit that like button.
Sub to this one. That's more important.
Yes.
Alistair, can you take us home, my good friend?
Thank you so much for watching, Jason. It was a great pleasure to have you with us, and you are absolutely funny, and I absolutely love the hat, though I don't agree with the logo.
Tons of fun to have you here. Thank you so much for coming, man. This was great. Great combo. It flew by, didn't it?
That was really fun. Yeah.
As always, take care of yourselves. Press like and subscribe, of course. Be nice to each other, and keep an open mind. Thank you.
Bye, guys. We love you, Jason. You want to say goodbye?
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm going to practice my French in case I'm invited back. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Merci beaucoup.
Ensuite.
Au revoir.
I can't do that.
Well, if you can't pronounce the airs, then I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. Adios.
Au revoir. Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
End transmission. Thank you for watching.